Assalamu alaikum, guys. How are you? How are you? How's everybody? I hope everybody is feeling good, just like me. feeling in a good mood, you know. I stepped on the scale in the beginning of this week, and I didn't tell you this, Zishan, but I was very light, much lighter than I usually am. Much lighter than I usually am. I was 110 kilos. It's the first time in many years that I was 110 kilos. And that's like, I tell you what, maybe about 2-3 months ago, I was 123 kilos. So that's 13 kilogram. That's 2 stones. I didn't realize that. It all started with Paul Golding because I was training for the guy. And my strategy with him was to finish him really quickly. Okay, if I'm being honest. And because I was trying to finish him in the first round, I needed to have a really high output. So the way I thought about it is for me not to gas out, just in case somehow the guy sticks around for the second round. That I need to be fitter. And I thought, okay, well, how am I going to be fitter? And I thought, well, to be fitter, I have to be lighter. I thought, okay, to be lighter. So I started losing weight in preparation for that particular fight because the strategy for it was that we can put the thing, the charity thing as well. So I was thinking, just go down and so that I can have a more work rate in the 5-minute round. And it is what it is. But then unfortunately the crowd pulled out of the contest. But at least something good came out of it. So yeah, that's what happened. But I didn't realize I've lost that much weight. What is 13 kilograms in pounds? I don't know what it is. But yeah, guys, I'm just waiting for all of you guys to, what do you call it, come on, so that I can talk to you and I can have conversations. Whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, whether you're agreeable or disagreeable, whether you have something to say or something to ask. This stream is meant for us to engage with you. Sabor should be coming back. I don't know what country he was in, but he's on his way here, actually. So we're going to be blessed with his presence soon enough. And maybe we should try something new this time. Okay? I'm just saying, if you guys tell me what you guys think, I'll get your opinions when I say this. Maybe before we start everything, we take an ayah of the Quran and do collective tadabbur or thinking about that particular ayah of the Quran. And maybe that's a good way to start because the Quran states that أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Yeah? Do they not ponder over the Quran or are there locks on their hearts? Actually, it's a very interesting ayah because if you think about it, it says على قلوب what do you call it? أقفالها أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوبهم أقفالها. So it's like their locks. It's not even are there locks on there. It's probably a wrong translation. Like a proper translation is the heart already has locks. It's not are there locks on the hearts. It's that the heart already has locks there. It belongs to the heart. أقفالها. It's the أقفال. It's the locks of the heart. Do you see? It's a very interesting, subtle linguistic thing there. But the fact is, it shows that some people who will not think and ponder over the Quran, they are predisposed to having the Quran or to looking at the Quran in a way which is disfavorable in the first place. And so some people will benefit from the Quran and some people will not benefit from the Quran. So let's start with Surah Al-Fatiha, okay? Because whilst people come on, I'll do a little bit of this because it's beneficial for me and it's beneficial for you. We'll start with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allah says, all praise and thanks belongs to Allah, Lord of the worlds. Alhamdulillah means all praise and thanks. It's both of those things together. Alhamd is praise and thanks. Now, there are differences of opinion among the scholars on that matter, actually, to be honest. Some scholars say that alhamd is athana, it's just basically praise without thanks, actually. And some of them say it is praise and thanks. So that's something I found in tafsir. Nevertheless, it's interesting that Allah says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, that all praise and thanks belong to Allah, Lord of the worlds. Because whether human beings existed or they didn't, whether we are here or not there, the thanks would still belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So to him belongs all praise and all thanks. And he is the one that's worthy of worship. So Alhamdulillahi, Lillahi, so Lillahi means to Allah, and Allah is there's a difference of opinion among the linguists as to what the word Allah is. Mushtaq or is it jamid? This is an interesting distinction. Is it derivative or is it non-derivative? Okay. So some scholars say it's mushtaq and it's actually mushtaqun min. It is derivative from the word meaning to worship someone, which is a verb. And some say, no, actually, it is a word that is not like that. It's a word that's always been, Allah has always been like that, and even in other languages, which is, I would say, probably the most common opinion. But Allah means the God, basically. Rabb is 2 letters of the Arabic language, which have like 10 meanings, maybe 20. I don't, know exactly how many meanings, but so many. Rabb is a Lord. Rabb is the master. Rabb is the cherisher. Rabb is the sustainer. Rabb is the maintainer. Yeah. To do tarbiyah of something is to grow it in a certain way. Yeah. So Allah's growing us in a certain way. He's developing. He's the developer. He's developing us in a certain manner, in a certain way. Yeah. So that's what Rabb means. And it also means master. We are the slaves of the master. The master is Allah. We're not the slaves. Some people are slaves to their desires. Some people are the slaves of money. Some Muslims have become essentially slaves to money in many different countries, in different contexts. And the Prophet said, Ta'isa abdu dinari wa dirham, that he said that cursed be the one who is the slave of a dinar and dirham, meaning that they take money as God. What's the name of that mythological god of money? Is it Mammoth, or I think there was a name? If someone can find out for me. But god of money is called, what's his name? Is Mammoth? I don't know. It's Mammoth or something like that. That's what his name is. Forget his name. Maybe someone can help me with that. Plutos, maybe. I don't know. Maybe who's Mammoth then? Let's find out who's Mammoth. Yeah, of money. Or is it Plutos? I don't know. Who is it? Mammon. Yes, Mammon is a biblical term in the New Testament that personifies money, material, wealth, and greed. So Mammon, not Mammoth. Mammon, that's the one. So imagine that. Some people that worship, how do you worship money? You think that the end goal in life, the purpose of life, is just that you may acquire money, more money, more money, more money, more money. And then to what end? Because ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر. كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون, that you pile and aggregate and accumulate wealth and money together حتى زرتم المقابر, until you meet the graves, and then you'll find out then. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that لو أوتي ابن آدم واديان من ذهب لأراد الوادي الثالث, that if the son of Adam has been given 2 valleys of gold, he'd want the third one. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that لكل أمة فتنة وفتنة أمتي المال, that every ummah has a fitna, and the fitna of the money, of my ummah is going to be money. There's lots of things that are fitna to nisa actually as well. The Prophet told us about that, especially for men, obviously, which is that the desires relating to women, especially in the British summertime now, it's become out of hand actually. But is having desires for something is not the same as worshipping it. So there has to be some level of restraint. Otherwise, you become abd. You become some kind of a slave to your desires, to money, to all of these things that don't deserve you to be their slave. And that's why Rousseau said that man is born free, but everywhere in chains. He's born free, but he's a slave to everyone. The only one who really breaks free from the chains of Rousseau are the ones who accept Allah as the master, the Rabb. And that's what we start off by saying in the Quran. So Alhamdulillah, Rabb, we said what Rabb is, and Al-Alameen. Al-Alameen is interesting because Al-Alameen means the worlds. So it's whatever world we're talking about, whether it's different universes, whether it's the world of the jinn, the world of the quantum mechanical world, any potential realm that exists, Allah is the Lord of, He presides over all of those realms, and that's the meaning of Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. This is something that at least we can think about when we're praying or something like that. Now, let's bring some people on. We started off with the Quran just to warm you guys up, and obviously it's the best thing to start with. Muslim, mashallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes.
Salam.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, brother?
Not bad.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I got a question. How do we know we can attain Allah's mercy in this life and the next in Judgment Day? How are the ways we can work for our afterlife?
How do we attain it, or how do we know we can attain it?
Yes, how do we know how we attain it and how we can attain it?
The way that we know that we can.
How would in Judgment Day, Allah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the way that we know that we can attain it.
Allah always.
Yeah, I think there's a gap between.
Allah always speaks about punishing people in the Quran. About how we punish Ad, Thamud, people of Lut, but He always says He's the most merciful for those who repent. So, what are the deeds that we should do so we can attain His mercy?
The deeds you should do are pray 5 times a day, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do exactly what He said. And what you don't do is fall into the major sins. And that's why Allah says, الَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشَ إِلَّا اللَّمَمْ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ وَاسِعُ الْمَغْفِرَةِ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِكُمْ إِذْ أَنْشَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَرْضِ وَإِذْ أَنْتُمْ أَجِنَّةٌ فِي بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى. That He says, the ones who abstain from the major sins except for the minor sins. And then straight after that, Allah says, Inna Allah wasi'ul maghfirah. That certainly Allah is all merciful. He's expansively merciful, encompassingly merciful, right? So he started off by
Sure.
telling us what to do. So this means don't do any major sin, you're good. That's it. Simple as that. You don't do any major sin, it's alhamdulillah, Allah will forgive you, so long as you believe in the right things. Which means that you don't leave off
So
the prayer.
what about the prostitute? Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the prostitute who gave water to a dog? Her life work was zina, and the serial killer who killed 100 people.
Exactly
Why
so.
did Allah forgive them, but for their even small acts of these they did?
Yeah, because
But
Allah
what was
can
the
forgive.
reason?
I mean, it's not a small act for someone.
I can't hear you, man.
I mean, it's not a small act for someone to be a pathological murderer and then reform their lives thereafter and repent to God. That's not a small thing. It's harder for someone in that physiological state to make a change than it is for the average person to make a change. So we may think of it as a small thing because for us, the standard is different. But for them, it took a lot to do these small things. And that prostitute you speak about, we don't know what her life was. Maybe that she was doing that to feed her children.
Okay, and another yeah.
Yes, sir,
Sure. What was my question? I just heard, I'm not sure, but I heard when a disbeliever asks Allah for something, Allah will immediately give them their dua in this life because He doesn't want to hear about them in the afterlife, or He doesn't want to give them because they have no share for the afterlife. So when a believer makes a dua, Allah withholds his prayer so He can give it in the afterlife. So it means he's going to Jannah, if I'm correct.
No, that's wrong, actually. That's wrong.
Okay.
Sometimes you can ask Allah for something.
That?
Yeah, as a believer, you can ask Allah for something. And there are 3 things that Allah can do with your dua.
Yeah.
All right. As a believer, right? Someone who's not a disbeliever. As a believer, you can make dua to Allah, and you can make dua that you, for example, pass an examination. That can happen immediately. You can make dua that you are alleviated from pain. That can happen immediately. You can make dua that you get married. That can happen very quickly, you know. And the many people make these du'as, and these du'as are answered all the time. Yeah. So I mean, what I mean is that what I'm trying to say is that, so that's one potentiality. The second potentiality is that Allah, He gives you something better than what you asked for. I mean, He could give you something even better. You can make dua for X, and then
in the afterlife.
Y. No, even in this dunya, why not? You know. Or He can give you something in the afterlife. Yes, I mean, so Allah decides what He does, but the fact is that Allah can answer your dua immediately. He can, and if He doesn't, then maybe He knows something you don't know, and that's why there's a qaida fiqhiyya, there's a jurisprudential principle which is very interesting, which says that man ta'ajjala shay'an qabla awanihi uqiba bihirmani, which is that when someone tries to to get something before. Yeah, when someone tries to get something before its time, he is punished with its deprivation. So sometimes things are not meant to happen in the time that you want them to happen. Allah is the one who chooses the time for you. Okay, and there's a reason why He chooses particular times in particular for particular people. You see, and so there is no preferential treatment given to a disbeliever in this world, and there's nothing to show that at all in the Quran, in their dua or something like that. Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
What about the disbelievers then?
Yeah, as I said, there's no preferential treatment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. there's a bit of a lag between me and you, brother, but thank you so much for coming on. We'll speak again. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next, brother. Very, very good questions. Very poignant questions. Go ahead, Mr. Netanyahu. What's your name? Sorry, brother.
Hebrew name though, so close enough. Or Nehemiah if you're Christian. But anyway, I'm a agnostic, however you say, unsure, questioning, and I was just wondering how you get your beliefs, where you come, and a little bit about like the Islam teaching. I'm very new to this, but I saw you with Faraz Zahabi because I'm a big fan of him, and I was really loved your conversation that you had with him. So I wanted to join the live.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, we're very welcome to come onto these lives, and people like you are what make the lives actually quite interesting. Not to say that the other people are not interesting; they're very interesting too. But okay, if you're asking me particularly about why I believe in God, because that's probably the first thing we should be talking about, then I didn't require a rational argument to believe in God. I think that the reason why I believe in God is intrinsic within me, and there's good evidence to show now that we all have an innate receptivity to believing in a higher power. Obviously, Justin Barrett at Oxford University done a huge study with so many thousands of children, and he showed beyond reasonable doubt that actually we are all born believing in something greater, a higher power. So it's, I think, sociologically, whatever environment you're in, that will pull you towards whatever religion or non-religion that we're talking about. But the first thing I would say is, number one, yes, I didn't require a rational argument, and I just believed in God because it made sense that the universe had a creator. But it was not something I required evidence for because of the intrinsic reality of the fitrah, or the idea innate receptivity to believing in God. But then when you do rationalize it, you start thinking to yourself, what are the alternatives? And this is a very interesting and important question. So God is the proposition that you have an ultimate reality that explains all of existence. Yeah. So
Right.
what's the alternative? Why is there something rather than nothing? So let me start with that question for you, Nahaima. Why is it? Yeah.
Well, I would say that I don't know, right? So
Yeah, you don't know.
being agnostic.
Sure. So can something come from nothing?
Generally in this world, you'd say no, but we know that there has to be something that comes from nothing. Whether or not that's God is up for debate, but we know that something has to come from nothing, right?
Why?
Because no matter, there has to be a first cause in the universe. So whether that's
Okay.
God or whether that's through some other explanation, that
Sure.
beginning needs to have not had a creator. So it needs to therefore be outside of the realm of logic that we operate in, right? For lack of a better word. So
Okay.
something had to have come from nothing.
No, but what you're describing, that the beginning had to have some sort of creator and a first cause. That first cause is not nothing, is it?
That's what I'm saying. That's something, but it came from nothing. It didn't come from out. It couldn't have come from something because then, right? That's something you just you're pushing. You're going back up the chain, right?
So
So
you're
something
saying
had
the
to come from
universe
nothing.
came from first cause?
I would say the evidence would point to some first cause, most likely. However, it's unconclusive. It could be that I don't believe that the universe in and of itself exists as like an actual thing. I think universe is a word that we use to describe what we see. So
Okay.
saying the universe itself, you know what I mean?
Okay. So whether or not you want to use the term universe, there is something, and that something is the opposite of nothing, because nothing is the absence of something.
Right.
Nothing is zero. Okay. That's in mathematical terms, that's zero.
Sure.
So do we agree that something which is plus something, 1, 2, 3, could be something positive, cannot come from something, from nothing, from zero? Do we agree with that?
In day-to-day life, yes, but if we're talking from the beginning of creation, no matter if you're believing God or not, you can't believe in that, because if God's the creator, there's no creator of God, then that God is something and it came
Okay.
from nothing, right? Because God had created everything. But if it's
All
the
right.
universe itself, then right, you know what I
Sure.
mean? So yeah.
No, but then you're saying it came, right? So if that God is the creator that you're talking about, the first cause, it wasn't preponderated. It wasn't
Sorry, what does that word mean? Sorry.
yeah, it didn't come into being. It did not come into being, right? It was always there. So the idea of a God, or the idea of a first cause or a necessary being, is that it was eternally, pre-eternally so. there was no point at which it was nothing or came from nothing, right? So it wasn't. That's
Oh,
what I
okay,
mean by
fine. But
preponderant.
when I was saying that something had to come from nothing, I really just meant something always was. I guess you can't come from,
Okay.
but
Yeah, sure. So then we agree then. But so you believe in an entity which always was, that brought rise to the physical reality that we see around us.
so not necessarily. So I would believe that I wouldn't use the entity implies other things, but I would say that something, right, is a very general sense, whether that is the universe itself, which again is just a word for what we see around us, right, had to always be. I agree to that, but I wouldn't say an entity because that attributes like certain ideas to it that I wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily say.
I mean, entity is, I think, quite a neutral term, but no problem. You can use something. Okay, so something was always there. Okay, and that thing that was always there was eternally so. So it was a pre-eternal agent. And that pre-eternal thing, okay, that was always there, brought rise to what we have around us. Would you accept that so far?
I don't know if it brought rise as in like it. I'm not sure about brought rise, but I guess through that, then yeah, yes. But I feel like the way you're phrasing it has like connotations. But yeah, we could go with that. Yeah.
Have you got any issue with that? Would you like? How would you, if we were to phrase it a different way, so you can feel completely comfortable?
Mm.
If we were to say that, yeah, if we were to say, for example, that everything in reality, in physical reality, the responsibility of its existence lies in the ultimate necessary pre-eternal thing that we've just established.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So now the question is, so you believe in essentially what we would call God. You're no longer an agnostic. You've left agnosticism. If you believe in that, you're no longer an agnostic, because an agnostic says.
Sorry to cut you off. But I mean, it depends on what you define as God. If you define God as any first cause, then I would say, I guess I am a believer, right? But I mean, for example, right, like I see no difference between maybe that first cause was a simulation, and outside of the simulation, rules work differently. It's for us, our interpretation, it would be like a heavenly realm, right? So if you're saying first cause equals God that exists, then I guess I would agree with you. I believe in God, but I wouldn't define God as that. I would define God more as like a creator with a will and want for the world that's involved and whatnot.
Right. So let's deal with all of those points, because there is a basic understanding of what a God is, right? And the basic understanding is, as you mentioned, something through which all things exist, and all things exist through this thing, which means that this thing is responsible for all of existence. Now, you can call that creation, or you can call it something else, but that responsibility, if you want to call it that, for existence is equivalent to a creation. But as you correctly said, right, in order for it to be intentional creation, you'd require a will.
Mm-hmm.
So are we on the same page so far on that point?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So then I would direct you to the point, the following point, which is that in the universe, things are one way rather than another way. So, for example, the planets or celestial spheres, they rotate one direction rather than another direction. Would you accept this?
Yep.
So the fact that the rotations of the planet happen in one way rather than another way indicates that there was an external sorting agent that made a decision on the directionality of the celestial spheres.
So I'm not sure why we would assume that. I mean, things, in order for something to be a thing, it has to not be other things, right?
Sure.
So even if the first cause was completely, will-less and random, and it created the first spark, then that spark was this way, not another way. That doesn't mean that there was a will behind it, right?
But what I'm saying is that the universe, would you accept that the universe is one way rather than another way that it could have been coherently?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, the universe could still function if every single planet and every single celestial sphere and every single atom and proton, electron, they were essentially orbiting the opposite direction. Every single thing, instead of orbiting, let's just say clockwise, they orbited anti-clockwise, do you accept that that would still
Probably,
allow
yeah.
for a functional universe?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not a
Sure.
physicist, but yeah.
I can show you that that is the case. I mean,
Yeah, no,
there's
I believe
nothing.
that. Yeah.
Sure. So if things could be one way rather than another way, it indicates that a choice has been made on its behalf as to what way to be.
Why is that? Because if I were to go ahead and trip and fall, I fell one way. That doesn't mean I chose to fall that way, right? So it doesn't imply
Okay.
conscious will. It just implies that something happened, right?
Okay, so let's give you give me. We're surrounded by different objects here. Yeah.
Okay.
Choose an object that is either in your room
Okay.
or is in my room. Choose any object that you like.
All right. I'll choose that fan behind you.
Excellent. So it's a black fan. You can see it and everyone can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it could have been a white fan, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
So the manufacturer decided that it's going to be black rather than white.
Right.
Excellent. So what's the explanation that it's black rather than white?
It was decided.
That it was decided upon by the manufacturer.
Correct.
So I'm saying that, is that a reasonable inference?
Yeah.
Have you seen the manufacturer paint this thing black or decide that it's going to be black?
No, but I know that was created by a manufacturer throughout my experience in life, and I know that.
Excellent. So
there's experience.
what I'm saying is the same thing applies with the universe. The universe is in one way, one coherent mechanism, and it could have otherwise been another way, another coherent mechanism, but it's one way rather than the other way. And that one way indicates that some choice has been made by the manufacturer, by the external sorting agent, the external decision maker of the universe. The fact that the universe is one way rather than another way is indicates someone's choosing for that to be the case.
Right, but I don't really accept that. I mean, it's one case with the fan where it's a creation where we know for a fact the creator is deciding things, right? But then there's tons of cases throughout the world where things happen without conscious will of it, right? So an animal will try and hunt, and in the process of hunting, break something, right? That doesn't mean that the animal meant to break it, right? So just because something happened one way doesn't mean that it was decided to happen that way, right?
I understand what you're saying, but let's go back to what you had agreed on. Me and you already agreed that the responsibility, okay, of the universe, the way it is designed now, or the way it is in place, or if we want to call it physical reality around us, that goes back to the necessary being that we've already discussed, right?
Right, but by responsibility, I'm not.
You're not talking about will. You're not talking about will, right?
Yeah.
So now we're trying to bridge the gap. So we've got the issue of, I've said to you that there's a particularizer, because things are a particular way or things are specific ways. It follows that there has been a specifier. Now you've made a good, you've responded in a clever way. You've said that why does it have to be conscious? Why are you assuming that this was an intellectual decision and that it was a calculated decision, just like somebody could be on a skateboard, I don't know what you said, or rollerblades or something, and falls and trips and whatever, or slips on some kind of banana peel or whatever it may be. So it could be an unconscious thing, or it could be some kind of a mistake. And that's a fair point. The only difference is that when we look at something, i.e. the universe around us or physical reality around us, we notice that physical reality has three major attributive properties. Number one, that it's regular. Number two, that it's stable. And number three, that it's uniform. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, for example, if one wanted to do science, one has to assume that science is not going to change if a discovery is made about a constant of the universe. So, for instance, let's say for the sake of argument, water boils at 100 degrees. If I decide, okay, so water boils at 100 degrees, I'm giving you a trivial example, but today and tomorrow, I expect water to boil at the same temperature. And after tomorrow, I expect the same thing. If I go to Japan, I expect it to boil at 100 degrees. If I go to Iceland, I expect it 100. And South Africa, I expect it 100. So that's what I mean by regularity and stability. The point is, when you see a universe or physical reality around you that is orchestrated in a fashion which is regular, stable, and uniform, okay, you have two options. Either this came from an intelligent source or this came from an unintelligent source. Which one makes more sense to you?
I would say that both of them seem equal to me, honestly.
Okay,
Because,
so you're saying they're equal, right?
yeah, equal possibilities.
Okay, so let's go with that. The universe itself, okay, the universe that we have around us, it's capable for us to see patterns within it. Yeah. So we have forces, we have laws in the universe, the physical laws, the natural laws. Yeah.
Well, I would say more less so that we have laws, more that there are constants that we attribute laws to, right? Because we don't
Okay,
actually
fine.
know, like, yeah, okay,
Yeah. So let's use your words, because otherwise this will become a semantical point.
Yeah.
So there are constants in the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Right. Now, if we did not have constants in the universe couldn't be maintained. There would be no universe. There'd be nothing around us. Things would blow up everywhere. This phone, this thing, anything, this microphone would blow up. There's nothing. If I didn't believe in a uniformity and regularity of nature, there's nothing to me that would indicate that this microphone, as I'm speaking to you on it, would not at any point blow up, or it would transform into a bunny rabbit, like a magic trick.
Right.
Or that I would transform into a bunny rabbit, or transform into a dog, or whatever, and then you transfer into a bird, and we all become something different, and all these kinds of things happen. So what I'm saying is that regularity means that we expect something to continue as a pattern in the universe, right? So you're saying you expect patterns to exist in the universe, but the expectation of patterns, I'm asking, you've got two interpretations here. Are you expecting patterns because of A, the fact that this comes from an intelligent source, or B, that this comes from an unintelligent source? Which one makes more sense?
So I would say that I'd still say they're both equal. The reason why is because when we're talking about first cause, all we really need to establish is that very first chain, right? Like the first thing that created the Big Bang, for lack of a better understanding, right? After that, everything seemingly, I'm not a scientist, but seemingly can be explained through natural causes. I think, I don't think Islam rejects that idea. Like the Big Bang, I think can hear it with the Islam, or no? So
yeah, you can believe in the Big Bang, be a Muslim.
Okay, yeah. So I'm saying everything else in this world that has that order and that cause and effect that we're talking about is explained in it of itself. So all we really need to figure out is that first spark, was that created consciously or was that created unconsciously? So when we go ahead and we bring the example of, well, we see that there's order. This is kind of what I saw you and Faraz Al be talking about, which I thought was brilliant at first. I was really thinking about it, was that there's no chaos in the world. There's only order, right? Because there's always cause and effect. There's always a reason behind everything. That is true. However, when we go to the beginning, all we need to figure out is this being, right? This first creation, this first little, beginning, right? Was that created consciously or was that created unconsciously? And to me, I see that as 50-50. Just because we look at the rest of the world and see consciousness, or see causality, right, that's directly correlated, we both have to agree that this top thing doesn't have causality, that laws don't apply. So since we understand that the laws of the universe won't apply to this beginning, I see no reason to think that it would be a willful design versus unwillful. You understand?
I understand what you're saying, but the point is, we're not necessarily talking about causality per se here. We are talking about different patterns in the physical world. I'm saying that, for example, that we are observing different patterns, and these patterns are expected, because if you don't expect patterns to be exhibited, science would become a frivolous and pointless enterprise. Science itself is just the detection of patterns. That's all it is. You're trying to detect certain patterns. And so laws or constants, either or, whatever word you want to use, are essentially just patterns. I'm saying the existence of patterns in the first place. So I'll give you another example. We have certain patterns in the universe that stop the universe from blowing up completely now. The universe is continuing right now. There are orbits in the universe. There are celestial spheres moving in a specific direction. There are ecosystems happening. There's exact balances that allow life to exist. Because it's not just the fact, brother, that it's not just the fact that, okay, you've got this balance, okay, which is the regularity and the uniformity and the stability, but it's the fact that it allows life to exist.
Sorry,
Okay.
can you repeat that one more time?
Okay, so you've got two facts here which are indubitable. Yeah, they're incontrovertible facts. Fact number one, you have patterns in the universe. You have regularity, uniformity, and stability in the universe. Yeah, you have patterns in the universe. Like I said, the patterns that you need to believe in order to do science, whatever electromagnetic constant, whatever constant you want to believe in, you can't even think of those things, gravitational constant, unless you had an understanding of pattern detection in the first place. So there are patterns in the universe, number one. Number two, okay, those patterns in the universe allow life to be exhibited in the universe. Yes? So you have patterns in the universe. The extent of that is it allows life to exist in the universe. Now, when you couple those two things together, the existence of patterns and then the existence of life in the universe together, now I ask the question again, what's the best explanation for that? The fact that this came about due to an intelligent, conscious, if you want to put your word, an intelligent calculator, or a non-intelligent, say, random force, or some other sort of active force? Which one makes more sense to you?
I'm still kind of struggling to see where the rest of that has any effect, because since everything in the world, right, the life and the patterns that we're talking about, they all are created that way through natural processes, right? I think we would both agree on that, right? The natural processes lead to that. What we're really discussing, the unnatural part, would be the beginning of that, right? So it's not that the patterns themselves are being created, right? The beginning for, let's say, first life, or however the universe would be created, was created with certain, let's say, I'm going to use the word design, obviously, as I don't believe it's intentional design, but certain nature of it, right? And throughout that, the rest of everything is congruent. So we're talking really only about one beginning, and because we're talking about that one beginning, I don't see that there's enough, like, even if I were to say, like, maybe it is intelligent, which I already agree, like, it very well could be. I don't see that there's near enough, like, evidence for me to
Okay, well,
conclusively
I
say
think
that.
so. You're saying you've kind of convoluted the answer here, and it's the first time I've asked you a question and you haven't answered directly to this. But let me repeat the
That's all,
question,
yeah,
because I think it's important to get to the bottom of why you believe in what you believe here. What we've said is that there are two facts which are objectively true, and an atheist, an agnostic, a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, everybody has to agree. Fact number one, the universe exists, which we've just discussed, and it has uniformity, stability, regularity, or you can just say patterns. Okay, it has patterns in it, which are reflected in the various attempts to try and understand the laws of physics or the laws of nature in a general sense. Yes, so you've got that. And then you've got that's one. Two is the fact that you've also got life that exists in the universe. Okay. And so these patterns allow that life to exist. So those patterns allow that life to exist.
So
You've got,
if I could just ask you a question, because I'm trying
yeah.
to figure out where I kind of view those as kind of the same thing. That's why, and you're making them two distinct points. What are you saying there when you're making it? There's patterns, and the patterns allow the life to exist. I would say that there's.
What I'm saying is that the universe is hospitable to the extent to which life is allowed to promulgate and maintain in the universe. That there is such a thing as biological organisms, and that is the science of life or living organisms that essentially would not have been the case had patterns the way they are in the universe not existed in the way that they do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So the patterns of the universe allow life to exist. Now, this fact, there's only two options. Either the patterns in the universe allow life to exist, A, because it was designed that way, as you mentioned. Okay, there was a designer, there was some calculator of these events, or B, that it happened randomly and there was no such calculator, and it just so happened brutally and or randomly that this just is like this, and it's just a matter of random process, etc., etc. There is no actually third option. There's no other explanation as to why the patterns allow life to exist. Not just any life, may I add. If you think about it, me and you, brother, we are conscious life. We have awareness of ourselves. We can ask questions. We have first person subjective experience of free will, etc., etc. So this is a very complicated type of life. It's not just a straightforward kind of life. So you've got the patterns in the universe that allow life to exist, not just that, complicated life to exist. And in any situation where we see those things lining up, we attribute it to a manufacturer. So the fan that you looked at and you said, well, I know the manufacturer, this and that and the other, you had no qualms whatsoever just jumping to that conclusion. So I'm asking now, if you consider the two possibilities, either that came from an intelligent, calculated source, or it did not come from an intelligent, calculated source, and it came from a random generation, which of the two is plausible?
I would say I would still say that it's unclear. And just to, we're kind of hitting a road here or a block, but the reason why is, again, because even though these things are the case, every type of causality and everything, and every chain of events can be like explained throughout natural cause and effect, that we can go up the chain until that first bit. Whether or not the way we're basically saying, since things are the way that they are and not a different way, right? Then therefore it must have been intently made the way that they are, right? Is that a fair way to paraphrase?
No, what I'm saying is this: you've got two aspects of the universe which everyone can agree.
Right.
You've got the aspect of the universe which is that the universe exists. Okay, there is existence rather than non-existence. Yes,
right.
That something exists. There is something rather than nothing, and we've already accepted. Okay, then
Right.
there's an ultimate reality which is responsible for all that exists, which is eternal, right? Now I'm trying to say, okay, you accept an ultimate, eternal, responsible, necessary being that allows everything else to be. Now let's think about what else we can use to describe this necessary existence. And I've said, okay, well, look at the universe. The universe has two fundamental aspects that we can easily identify. Number one, that it has patterns inside of it. It's regular, stable, and uniform. And number two, that these patterns allow life to exist within it. So you've got two aspects. My question to you was then, what's the explanation for the fact that the universe exists and that it has patterns within it, and that it allows life to exist, and that it allows complicated life to exist? There's four aspects here, really. Yeah, that the universe exists rather than doesn't exist, that the universe has patterns within it, that the universe has those patterns which are regular, stable, those patterns allow life to exist, and they're not just life, complicated, conscious life to exist. Now, my question to you is, what's the best explanation for that? You've got two explanations. Either that came from a knowledgeable source, an intellectual source, a calculating source, or it came from random source. And you're saying you think they're both plausible? Is that your position?
Yeah, that is. I think if we're
yeah.
Sorry.
If that's your position, let's explore the second one to see how plausible it really is. Is randomness an active force?
So I don't understand the question. Is randomness an active? What do you mean?
Does randomness exist? Is there such a thing as randomness?
I would say that in this world that we see, no. But there has to be randomness to some degree, because whether or not there's a God or a first cause, that first cause cannot be ordered. It has to be in and of itself, which therefore its nature by itself is random, because it's not being caused by other things.
You're saying there has to be randomness. Why does there have to be randomness?
Because if, based on the logic that we use to get to the determining factor, there must be a first cause. since that first cause cannot be caused by anything else, therefore it has its own nature,
Sure.
right, in and of itself. Because nothing set its own nature, I would call that randomness, right?
So you're calling randomness the nature of an eternal being? Is that your definition of randomness?
No, I would say randomness means without a cause, without a purpose or a defined reason.
Okay, so when we're talking about randomness, I'm talking about chance, by chance. Like, for example, to put things in a vernacular setting for you, if I did a lottery, I don't know, if I say I bumped into him by random or something like that, that's okay. So in reality, there's two types of randomness, my friend. There's epistemological randomness and ontological randomness. Yeah. Epistemological randomness is that I may think it's random if I bumped into you tomorrow in the street in London. I say, oh, that's random. I saw Naheima in the street in London. Okay. I say, that's quite a random thing. You'll say, okay, well, you're only saying it's random because you don't know the reasons for it. Okay. There are reasons for it. The reasons why you came to London and that you maybe have a meeting here or something. And I don't know about that. But my knowledge of those events doesn't inform the extramental reality of there being such a thing and whether that is an active force or not. So what I'm asking is not an epistemological question, it's an ontological question. And the ontological question is, does randomness exist in the real world? Is there such a thing as randomness or not?
Right. So defining randomness as chance, I would say no.
There's no randomness. So we go back to our question. If there's no randomness, then you have two options. The option is option A, which is that you have, as I've said, you've got a universe. This universe exists. Or you have physical reality around us that exists. That physical reality is imbued with certain patterns inside of it that allow uniformity, regularity, and stability of the universe to be. That then allows life to exist, not just human life, but all types of life on this planet, at least Earth. And then you've got human life, which is a complicated type of life with consciousness, and that you can even ask on a first person subjective experience perspective, why am I here? And all these sorts of ultimate questions. So you have a conscious experience. Those are four aspects of something that you can't deny. These are four things that nobody can deny. The question is, you've got two options. Option number one was this either is due to a calculating, intelligent, knowledgeable source, or is due to randomness. And now we've said randomness doesn't exist. So you're stuck with only one thing now.
No. The difference, when I said randomness doesn't exist, that means chance doesn't exist, meaning that everything in the universe that we see has cause and effect behind it. But like you said already, the beginning source I originally would define as random because it doesn't have a cause, right? There is no cause and effect to that one thing, which I would say is random, right? So I don't think that what we basically just said.
So I think, okay, so as you said, you're defining randomness in a way which no one does, because an uncaused thing is not necessarily random. It can be uncaused because it's necessary, not because it's random. It can be uncaused because it's pre-eternal. No, it's something can be uncaused, and actually something which is necessary is uncaused by its nature, right? Which means, so something which is necessary means something hasn't brought rise to. A cause is defined as something which has been given rise to, something when you give rise to phenomena. That's the dictionary definition of the word cause. When you something which brings rise to phenomena. David Lewis says a cause is something who's a huge philosopher, which creates a change and difference. So when we're talking about cause in relation to God, we're saying God is without cause. It doesn't mean that therefore God is random. No one frames it like that. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about the fact that God, we're saying, is uncaused. It doesn't mean he's random. It just means that he is necessary. It means he's pre-eternal. Okay, you see the difference here?
Well, sure, but before, it's at least maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, but it sounded like what you were saying is, since randomness doesn't exist in the world, therefore God can't be random, therefore he must be orderly, which means he must have a will, right?
I didn't say anything like that. What I said was that you've got, so let's go back to what I actually said. You've got the universe, okay? The universe exists, okay? So you could either have, it's conceivable ontologically for the universe to have existed or not to have existed. Now the universe exists. So you've got number one, universe exists, something exists rather than nothing, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is the universe exists with patterns. Okay. So it exists, allows uniformity, regularity, stability, such that science can be done. And those things, for example, that's what physicists try and do. They try and figure out the constants, the electromagnetic constant. They may get it right, they may get it wrong, but that's what the job of the scientist is, to try and figure out the patterns of science, of the universe. The third point is, okay, now life exists, okay, and not just life. You've got complicated life, which is you've got human life. So these are 4 objective propositions about reality, which everybody agrees, whether you're Muslim, non-Muslim, Christian, Jewish, atheist, whatever you are. These are 4 points about reality which we have all accepted. Then we asked, what's the explanation? What's the best explanation for those 4 things? Is it that there is some knowledgeable source, or is it that there is not a knowledgeable source, that it's random? And then we've agreed that randomness doesn't exist. So we've actually cancelled out randomness. There is no such thing as randomness. So we're left with only one option, which is that it's due to a knowledgeable source, which we've already identified as the necessary existence. Do you see the point here?
So wait, just one step back is where I'm kind of getting lost, right?
Sure.
So we're saying that randomness doesn't exist because of cause and effect, and right, that's what in our world, right? Then we're saying that since randomness doesn't exist, God therefore can't be random. Is that what we're saying?
No, I'm not talking about God can or cannot be random. I'm talking about the universe. We're trying to explain the phenomena pertaining to the universe and the life within it. We're trying to get the inference to the best explanation relating to the universe and the life within it, right? So as I've said, there's 4 things, all right? The 4 things are: number 1, that the universe exists; number 2, that it exists with patterns, that it's uniform, that it's stable, that it's regular, that these patterns allow for life to exist, like different organisms and different life. And they also allow for human life to exist, which is a very complicated type of life, okay, which allows for self-questioning, it's got consciousness and all this sort of thing. I'm saying with those 4 points, which are indubitable, what are the options? We said either it came from an intelligent source or it came from a randomness. Then me and you agreed, actually, randomness doesn't exist in the real world as an active force of any sort. Randomness is an epistemological thing that's in the minds of people, but it's not out there in the real world in any way. And so if that's true, then you're only left with one option, which is that the reason why you have a universe, and the universe has patterns, and the patterns allow for life, and not just life, but complicated life and consciousness. The reason for that is a knowledgeable source.
Yeah, but what we're doing there, at least from what it seems, is you're taking the definition of random that we're using to interact with the world, right? Meaning not per chance, right? There's no chance because there's cause and effect. And then we're saying because randomness doesn't exist, therefore the source of creation must be intelligent, must be willful, because nothing randomly happens. What I'm saying,
we're not saying must be anything. See, that's a different thing. We're saying the inference to the best explanation. Okay?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
We're looking at the possible options. We're looking at the alternatives. We're looking at, this could be we're entertaining everything.
Right.
Today we're entertaining everything. We're entertaining whether something can come from nothing. We've entertained that option, and we've said that it can't. Fine. So we said, can the universe create itself? No, the universe can't create itself. So we've self-creation, because it means something is there and not there at the same time, is a contradiction. Fine. So we then said, is there some ultimate thing which the universe is responsible for? We said, yes, that makes sense. You have agreed with that. And so we say, fine. So we're at the point now, we're saying, okay, how do we accept that this thing that you're talking about is in fact a knowledgeable and willful agent?
Right.
So I've proposed to you that when you look at the universe, you look at the universe and it has patterns inside of it. And those patterns allow life to exist and allow human life to exist. The question I have is that what's the best explanation for that? Is that the ultimate reality that we've just spoken about, that is responsible for all creation, it did so in its capacity of knowledge, or that it has no knowledge and this thing happened randomly? Then you said, and I have to give you credit for that, you agreed that because of the cause and effect issue, that they cannot have randomness, and randomness is not an ontological thing that's out there in the real extramental reality. Therefore, by by
Right.
ad absurdum, or eliminative reasoning, yeah, we've eliminated all the options, and the only thing that's left standing is that you have a knowledgeable source, which we've already identified as the ultimate source, which brought rise to the universe with those four aspects.
But don't you see what you did there at the end? Because with randomness, there's two types of randomness that we're kind of discussing. Because we're saying if it's not randomness, it must be an intelligent source. Well, no, hold on, because I already said that God is random by the definition that it isn't caused or there's no order that created it, right? So
No,
when
but
we're
that's
saying,
not what the word random means, though.
well, okay, sure, then we won't use the word random, but we'll say unintelligible, right?
No, so look, this is confusing me a bit, because are you trying to say because God is uncaused, therefore the definition of randomness applies to him? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, what I'm saying is that what we were doing a second ago, the reason why I hesitate to use the word randomness in the beginning is because we can both agree that randomness doesn't exist in the world that we see.
Sure.
However, and then we might say, right, that the opposite of random is intelligent design, right, or something of that sort, right? And then we say,
Okay.
since randomness doesn't exist, it must be intelligent design. But that's wrong, because when we're saying randomness in the world, we're talking about cause and effect. There is a cause and effect to it. That's all we're saying, right? Since God does not have a cause and effect, by that definition that we were just talking about, God would be random. So to say because randomness doesn't exist in the world, God could be random.
Let's go back to this. So I think there's a fundamental definitional misunderstanding here. So there's misunderstanding in definitions. Okay. We are not. This is not correct for you to say that something which is uncaused is therefore random.
Well, even whether or not, whether or not the words are correct, it's the idea that I'm trying to portray. What I'm trying to say here.
No, I get what you're trying to say, but like I said, you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say we both accepted that randomness is not an active force. Let me put this in a simpler way. So, for example, you know how in the world
can we define randomness? Because maybe that'll help me.
Yeah. So randomness, I'm using it as interchangeable with the word chance. Chance. Yeah. So something.
I would define chance as randomness.
Something which happens without reason. Things which happen without reasons. Things which happen bereft of an explanation. Okay. That's how I'm explaining it. So when I'm saying randomness, I'm talking about that. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about epistemological randomness. I'm talking about ontological randomness. I'm talking about something which happens without a reason, okay, without being chosen or without conscious design, whatever. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so that's the ontological.
Wouldn't you then say that God, by that definition, isn't God random? Because God doesn't have a reason. God doesn't have a design of any kind. God is the way God is, right?
Okay, so that's the thing. The randomness only applies to created temporally or otherwise entities. It doesn't apply to necessary beings, because the reason why is it wouldn't apply. Let me give an example, right? A necessary fact is 2 + 2 = 4. Is that necessary?
Yeah.
Fine. So is that necessary? Is it random?
No, it's not random.
It's not random. See, now you see that you've hit the nail on the head. See that now you've got it, because you know why? You've accepted and understood that something which is necessary is not random. You've understood that 2 + 2 = 4 is a necessary fact. Okay.
Well,
you've understood that. You've understood it. It's absolutely understandable to you now.
Yeah, but hold on. But when I'm saying what I mean by it's not random, it's necessary, right? What I mean by that is all 2 + 2 = 4 is really just a language of saying, like, I'm gonna be like really retarded here, but like 1 here equals, and then doing the same thing again.
Yeah, tautology. Yeah.
Right. So it's not.
Right. So tautology is unnecessary.
It's not necessary as in it's a thing. It's a way that we. It's the only way that a human can make sense of what we see.
Okay, brother, 1 second. 2 + 2 = 4 is a tautology, right? You've just said that. It's the equivalence. 2 + 2 is equivalent to 4, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Excellent. So if 2 + 2 is equivalent to 4, that's a necessary fact, which means that it's not susceptible to any sort of change, and it's not random. It's not random ontologically. It's always been the case that 2 + 2 = 4, correct?
Well, I mean, yeah, but 2 plus 2
If
equals
all
4
human
doesn't
beings
exist.
on the planet died and there was an extinction of all life, 2 plus 2 equals 4 would remain the case, wouldn't it?
Well, 2 plus 2 equals 4 doesn't exist. It only exists as a way. It's the same thing as saying, would the word "the" exist if we all like got rid of it? Like, yeah, I
Okay,
guess.
but hold on. You're saying 2 plus 2 equals 4 doesn't exist, but it has to exist in some capacity
Not
because
in and of itself. It's a way that we say things that we see.
okay, so it's not just empirical though, because you can imagine another universe or some other things that you don't see, or if you are completely bereft of all senses and you can still conceptualize 2 plus 2 equals 4. If you lost all your senses, you can still it's still conceptualizable, right? It doesn't require external stimuli in order to arrive at. It's a
No,
priori.
but it does though, because in order for us to define meaning to 2, and right, in order for us to understand all of that, we have to experience the world, right? If we were in our mother's womb, like any thought needs to be shown to us, right? Like the original. I don't think it's possible to have an original thought of 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're confusing epistemology and ontology, right? And this is a common mistake you're making, because epistemology is what you conceptualize, how you understand things to be true, right? That's what epistemology is. It's the theory of knowledge. That's what epistemology is. It's the theory of knowledge. Ontology is the theory of being. So, okay, you're epistemologizing the idea that 2 plus 2 equals 4. I'm not talking about the epistemological status of 2
Can
plus 2
you?
equals 4.
Sorry,
I'm talking. Yeah.
these words are like kind of new for me. Can you kind of like dumb it down for me a little bit?
The word epistemology, it means the theory of knowledge.
Okay.
Okay. So it means how you and I come to know about the world. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what epistemology is. How do I know about the external world?
Right.
There's different ways I find out. Like, for example, my 5 senses. Yeah. These are ways I find out about the external world. Yes. This is part of epistemology. So the 5 senses are part of an epistemological understanding of the world. Yes.
Okay.
Senses as an example, but there are different things. Now, ontology concerns what exists, irregardless of how I conceptualize it. Yes, irregardless of if I exist and conceptualize it a certain way or not.
Right.
So when we were speaking about chance, I was telling you there's a difference between thinking about chance and how I perceive it from my perspective, that I've ran into you and it's like I bumped into you by random. From my perspective, it's random. But that's different from the ontological question, which is that if I bumped you, it might be random, but there's an explanation that I'm just ignorant of. I don't know what the explanation is, right? And that's why we showed that randomness only makes sense epistemologically. In the mind, in our minds, perspectively, it doesn't make sense ontologically as an active force. Now, I'm saying the same thing now with 2 plus 2 equals 4. I'm not asking an epistemological question. I am asking an ontological question. 2 plus 2 equivalent to 4, or the law of non-contradiction, or whatever you want, principle. This is non-contingent on the human mind. This is something that can be conceptualized whether or not human beings exist on the planet.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. I get what you're saying now.
So put it this way. Look, a contradiction. Okay, let's put it this way. A contradiction cannot occur with or without the presence of human beings. Do you accept this?
Yeah. I would say.
Yeah. So, for example, a squared circle, right? It cannot exist, right? Whether or not humans existed on the planet, a squared circle cannot be part of it. Correct?
Right.
Beautiful. So that shows you then. It shows you that a necessary thing, an ontologically necessary thing, cannot be random.
Why is that?
Because, as you've said, 2 plus 2 equals 4 is not random. The law of non-contradiction is not random. These epistemological, these metaphysical laws are not, no one refers to them as random, okay? No philosopher in the history of the planet, and from the time of whoever you like until this time, has referred to these things as random. You see? So an uncaused thing is not necessarily the definition of randomness we're looking for.
Okay.
Randomness, even by dictionary standards, like if you go now on your own time and you look at the dictionary, it's going to say random is a chance event, or it's a decision that was something which was made with no decision, or unintentional, something like this. That's what randomness is understood as. But even philosophically, randomness is not what you're describing. It's something which is uncaused. Okay, because you can have an uncaused necessary thing, which is not random.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Given the
so now we go back to the point, because now we've cleared that all up.
Yeah.
We go back to, because we said that, so since randomness doesn't exist, and since you've accepted an uncaused cause which is necessary, and since we now also know there's patterns in the universe, and that the uncaused cause, or the necessary being, has caused the patterns of the universe, and has caused, by extension, life to exist in the universe. And not just that, but has caused complicated life to exist in the universe, complicated like intelligent people like you, who are thinking for themselves and using their minds in a very clever way, very humble way, very sincere manner, very good way. We exist, right? So the question now is this because of some intelligence, or is it because of randomness? Since randomness doesn't exist, we're only left with one option, unless you can tell me another one.
Right. So okay, using the definition of randomness as chance. So if we're going to say that the universe, there is no chance that it could have went another way, there had to have been a reason. First off, I would maybe struggle with that identifiably, because applying these laws to a being that by itself makes no sense, yet it's necessary, right? Like we said, right? Because it doesn't make sense that something cannot have a cause, yet there must be something that has a cause, right? So then applying that rule of non-contradiction is maybe a little dicey, but even if we were to imply it, that...
No, I'm not on this. Sorry, before you go, say that. What did you just say? Can you explain it in a few sentences or two?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's the right thing to do to apply the idea that because there must be reason, meaning there must be a cause and effect to everything in the universe, right? Or a reason behind everything in the universe. I don't know if we can apply that to the first cause, or God.
Well, that's not my argument at all. I've not made an argument from the principle of sufficient reason.
Well, not sufficient reason. I guess what I meant to say is, because chance doesn't exist in the universe, we're saying that there is a reason behind things, right? So
I'm saying that. So I'm saying this. So just to be very clear about what I'm saying that you've got two options, yes, and unless you can give me a third or a fourth, then we'll have to stick with two.
Yeah.
Either the thing that this universe is responsible because of something brought the universe into being. We said it's the ultimate source. We said it's the necessary being. We said it's the uncaused cause. We agreed. Now, so everything in the universe is the responsibility of its existence lies in the ultimate source. The responsibility of its existence lies in the ultimate source. Yes. Now, the universe has patterns inside of it, and the universe is uniform and regular and stable, and it allows life to exist, and it allows human life to exist. The question that we said was, okay, what's the explanation for this? Is it that there was a designer, an intelligent designer, and knowledge, something that brought about these patterns, or that there's no designer and it happened randomly? In fact, we've just said randomness doesn't exist, so that is no longer an option. So now, because we've deleted that as an option, you're left with the fact that you have an intelligent designer, unless you're able to provide an alternative for it. And so your position should be, unless you're able to provide any evidence as to why intelligent designer that doesn't exist, that you should agree with the intelligent designer.
Well, all we've really said, according to that, is that there must have been, that it's not true that the universe could have been another way. It's not true. There must have been reason or lack of chance, right? I'm trying to use the word without making it sound the other way, right? Yeah. Sorry, I saw one in the comments and it made me laugh. Because we are saying that there is no chance in the universe, and we know that the universe therefore must have been made the way it was made, and there could have been no chance of the other thing, because chance doesn't exist. There was a reason for the way it was created. I don't think that necessarily implies intelligent design, right? Intelligent meaning
Okay.
a conscious experience that created it willingly.
Yeah, fine, no problem. It doesn't have to mean that. So what does it mean?
So
What's
it
the
would
explanation for it?
right. So if it's not that, what according to what you just said, it could be that things have
Yeah.
right this thing being God, right, has a nature, which we would both agree on,
Yeah.
and that nature is made in a way that the
Yeah.
rest of its interaction with the rest of the universe has a reason. I mean, I can't tell you what that would be.
Okay,
but
so now you've come
obviously-
to my way of thinking, haven't you? Now we're talking. Now we've both come to the same conclusion. So good on you for being honest and saying it. It could
Okay.
be that you, just to repeat what you said, could be that this uncaused cause, the God, you use the word God, not me.
Yeah.
It could be that this God put things into being with a reason. Okay, excellent, beautiful. And these things happen to be very complicated things which allow life to exist, and not just any life, complicated life to exist. Beautiful, excellent. So you believe in God then, don't you?
Well, if you're going to define God in that, then yeah. But
Yes, you do.
But well, hold on, because when
Well,
we're
hold on
saying
to you.
reason, when we yeah, thank you. All right, when we say reason, we're talking about a necessary need for things to happen a certain way, right? Now that does not imply consciousness or a
Fine. Yeah, I agree.
understanding or any of these other things. So if you want to say that we define God as a first cause that had to be this way and couldn't have been any other way, then I agree. Then I guess I am no longer agnostic. Then I agree.
Allahu Akbar.
Allah
Allahu Akbar, my friend.
Thank
Allahu
you.
Akbar. Now we're
For sure.
talking. Brother,
For sure.
I'm happy. Do you know, I like sincere people like
Yeah.
you. Where are you based, my friend? What country are you in?
Florida, yeah. the United
Florida.
States.
Some people are saying you're in Israel or something like this. Why
No,
do they
okay,
say this?
yeah. Well, I will say my name. That's probably why I am Jewish, but
Yes.
I'm not some Zionist guy at all. Actually,
Alhamdulillah.
let me tell
See,
you.
the people, they love you already, bro.
Wow,
The
this
people,
is
they
good.
love you. Now we've come to the look, subhanallah. This is why these conversations are fantastic. We're sincere conversations. The thing I like about you, brother, there's two things I like. Number one is you're very intelligent, and you've kept me intrigued. Like usually you'll find sometimes I'm a bit bored when I'm speaking to people. I wasn't bored at all speaking to you. Very intriguing, asking really pertinent questions. You'd agree, you know,
Yeah.
a very intelligent guy, very
you.
handsome Jewish guy, etc., etc., etc. Right. Number two, you seem sincere, brother. Honestly, and I love it when I speak to people who are looking. I can see in your eyes, you're looking for the truth, and because you're sincere,
Look at this.
because you're sincere and
Inshallah.
intelligent, you've come to the conclusion that there is an uncaused cause, there is a God, and that God is responsible for the universe, and is not just responsible for the universe, but actually that God which is responsible for the universe is responsible for the patterns of the universe and for the life, the complicated life in the universe. That makes sense to you, doesn't it?
100% that does. However, one caveat I'd like to say is that when we say God, we usually are implying some sort of consciousness, right? I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I would agree with, but I would agree with everything else you said. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. So you're right about that, and you have a right to have a reservation about that, because there are some attributes of God, okay, which we couldn't prove using just logical reasoning. Yeah, that's where the discussion about scriptures comes in.
Okay.
And that's what, yeah. So what we're going to do now is talk about the different religions, because now you have actually only two major world religions, let's be honest, that believe in this. You have Islam and Judaism. Yeah, so the religion where your forefathers basically believed in. Well, I mean, they believe in the Trinity, don't they? So they don't really believe in one responsible agent. They believe in three in one and one in three and all this kind of stuff. You know?
Yeah, but I think that at least I'm not going to go the whole, because obviously I agree. I think it's a little ridiculous, but I would say that I think that people, like, the way that I would understand the Trinity to like make it kind of make sense would be, really, in reality, Christians have a problem saying this, but really in reality, it's not a real thing. Trinity doesn't
now
really
we're
exist.
Talking.
However,
that's what we've been saying the whole time as well.
However, what Christians mean, at least this is my interpretation. Maybe I'm lying. Maybe they really,
your interpretation is correct. It's not a real thing at all.
But it's not a real thing. It's not a real thing. But the way that God communicates to its creations is through three parts. That's what I would assume that they're trying to say. If they actually mean that they exist in and of itself, then yeah, wallahi, they're crazy. as you guys.
Oh,
would
we're
say.
talking, brother. So what it is now? Oh, I'm gonna go and pray whilst my brother, his name is Sabor, is gonna speak to you for a little bit. He's gonna talk to
Okay.
you about the purpose of life. Yeah.
Mm.
You finish sandwich?
No, I'm good.
I'll be 5 minutes. I'll be 3 minutes. Yeah. Just to pray Maghrib quickly.
I'll move that. You move.
Yeah. So you speak to him about the purpose of life and Islam.
You don't
Yeah.
need to move the mic. I'll sit there.
I'm just gonna pray and come back. Okay?
You know, I was sitting there listening to you guys speaking.
Mhm.
It's so interesting that you've come to a lot of conclusions which I would say are quite Islamic. Where am I? I'm over there. There I can see you. So going back to your point, you believe Tawheed makes more sense than the Trinity, right? You think the belief in God,
The Ohid.
Muslims frame it.
Well, I yes, but I would say that the Trinity can make sense. It's just it would be relations, not actuality, right? If you mean by the Trinity, you mean God relates to humans in three ways, then it makes perfect sense to me. If
But
you
no
say,
one, yeah.
if you say that the Trinity means that this is exists in and of itself without humans, right? Then it's the nature of God and is separate. Then
Yeah.
that makes no sense. That's
Yeah,
what
so Nehema, is that how you say your name? Yeah,
in Hebrew it's
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah, in English should be Nehemiah.
Nehemiah, right? So I would say most Christians do not view it in a relational sense. They actually mean that there are three persons.
Right. Okay. Well, then I would say those Christians are definitely wrong. Like, there's no way.
Right. So you said your background. You said it was Jewish.
Yes, not just
So-
Jewish. Like Orthodox Jewish, like everything. Like
Really? Okay.
yeah.
So, what would you say to? I mean, I'm sure you're aware of biblical prophets and them coming and teaching people about God and teaching people about faith and morality and right and wrong and all of these basic types of things. From that perspective, you're quite familiar with the idea of prophethood.
Yep.
Where would you see a person like the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for you? Who is that person for you?
From my understanding, I really don't know much. Again, I'm just not. But my understanding, he was a person. I'm gonna get this all wrong, but he's a prophet of the Muslims who claimed revelation and said that, hey, God has spoke to me and given me these things, and he made a bunch of corrections in his mind and for the Christians and Jews, new things about the way that the Christians and Jews are doing and whatnot.
Right. The first thing to keep in mind is he is the most influential person to have ever lived. This is
Jesus has got to come on. Jesus has got to be higher, right? I mean,
okay. So let's think of it from this perspective, right? Today in the world, how many Christians are there?
I don't know. Like, what is it? 2 billion?
Okay, something like that, right? How many Muslims are there?
I think it's around the same, right? Or like 1.5 or a little less, probably.
Yeah. So Muslims are less, but in number, but still they're quite comparable.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the impact of Islam launched empires.
No,
So at the time of the Prophet, you actually had a political system, a cultural way of life which spread. You had a social order. You had these massive land empires, starting off with the 4 caliphs, and then you had the Umayyads, and then you had the Abbasids, and then you had the Seljuks, you had the Ottomans, you had the Mughals, you had the Samanids. You have all these types of empires which ruled large parts of the world for 14 centuries. Now, that's just the political element. But then from the social element, think of it this way. 5 times a day, all across the world, you would hear the call to prayer. And you'd find Muslims are continuously engaging themselves with the religion of Islam in a way that no other religion does. So if you look at other religions like Christianity, you would go to church once a week.
Yep.
With the Islamic faith, we're talking about 5 times a day. Now, in many ways, if we were just to take one aspect of Islam and compare it to Christianity, you could see the difference between the two faiths. So, for example, today in the world, Christianity is not a political force. Christianity plays a very little political role. religion writ large does not play a political role. But what you would find amongst Muslims
I don't know
is
if I would
this,
agree with that, but
Islam is still a dominant political force.
you
And
know,
Islam
I
is an
think Judaism is
ideology.
too, right? I think
Sorry?
I would say Judaism is too, even if, you know, maybe people don't want to admit it. I think that, and by the way, I think we'd probably both agree that there's a lot of issue with this, but that Jewish ideals are what's causing a lot of politics that are happening in the world right now. And same thing with Christianity in certain parts of Europe, I would say, right? You know, you
Yeah.
have that guy Tommy Robinson, I think, right? Isn't he like a big Christian like guy? He's like spouting Christianity. Whether or not it's right, I don't know about the UK politics, but you know, I would still say that the other religions are still political.
Yeah, I mean,
forces.
those people, they claim Christianity, but they actually critiquing religion or Islam in particular using a liberal ideology. They're not really using Christianity. If they were using Christianity, most of their arguments would be invalid. They wouldn't
True, true.
add up. So going back to this man that we were speaking about, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, this is a person on the minimum is one of the most influential people in the world if you don't know who he is. And if you know who he is, you would say he is the most influential. Now, from that perspective, I want you to consider something. Currently in the world today, people conform to their society. So people in the West, they dress in a particular way. People in the East dressed in a particular way. We have a particular language. We have a particular way of behaving. We have a particular culture. Now, imagine that 1400 years ago, Arabia was filled with polytheism. Okay. And polytheism wasn't just something that people did in their personal lives in terms of their personal worship. They're worshiping all these different idols. The idolatry of the day was actually part of the political, social, cultural, moral system. So what you actually had is trade was based upon the different idols that you'd bring to the home city of the Prophet, which is Makkah, and you would actually have all these idols that are coming there. Now, apart from that, you would actually have all of these routes between Persia and Rome and the Arabs in between, and all of these trade routes. All of this was based upon a very intricate network of tribal loyalties with each tribe with their own gods. Now, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 1400 years ago, he started his call to call people to La ilaha illallah, that there's none worthy of worship except the one true God, Allah. At that moment, the moment he uttered that, it was actually a declaration of war politically, socially, culturally, economically against the prevailing system. It's no different to raising the British flag in Nazi Germany. He alone stood up against all of these idol worshippers. And not only was he victorious, he led to the collapse of the Romans and the Persians and of centuries of Muslim dominance all across those regions. Now, those are something for you to think about, because since you're somebody who I believe is spiritual, you're looking into God, you're looking into faith, that's why you're coming here and you're asking questions. The natural question for you to ask is, how could a man have such global impact and yet not be divinely inspired? Just think about Islam from a not only political perspective, from an economic perspective. Islam came with a distinct economic model. How can a man in the desert 1400 years ago come up with an economic system which actually allowed a state to function? I want you to consider something. Within our lifetimes, we saw another political system, which is communism. We saw that with the Soviet Union. Now, their economic system totally failed. They tried to
Not my
collect.
lifetime, by the way. I'm 20 years old, but
Sorry?
not my lifetime. I'm 20 years old.
Okay. But
yeah,
Eastern Europe is still dominated by these types of these socialist policies. Now, they did collective farming. They did all these types of economic incentives that they thought would actually bring around the best of prosperity. They utterly failed. But here you have a system in Islam 1400 years ago, which came from a man in the desert. So a lot of these things, they're worth thinking about. Why would someone put themselves through such difficulty to go against all of the norms? And from the age of 40 to 63, which is like 23 years, he managed to change the world forever. Now, if there is a God, and if you do believe in a God, then someone like that is automatically a candidate for you to look at as a potential prophet. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I would
There you
100% agree.
Look at that.
He's
He just said 100%.
100%. He's
See,
a
you can
candidate.
tell this guy's sincere. You
He's
know?
sincere, and the fact is this: I wanted to say to you, brother. Look, let's get to the bottom of it. Let's be. Let's be honest about this, because if just actually on that point, let's not go anywhere. The Quran is one of the only books, religious books in the world, that gives a challenge to humanity. Yeah. It says, فَأْتُوا بِصُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ وَدَعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. That bring a chapter like it. So it's a challenge from the Quran to humankind. Bring a chapter like it and bring your witnesses from other than God if you are indeed truthful. Now, what Sabur was saying, let me embellish that a little bit, because imagine the following, bro. Imagine if I come up online right now as a YouTuber. I got a YouTube channel, and I say to the people, listen, I'm receiving revelation from God, okay? And the next video that's going to drop is going to be the video that no one can replicate, okay? That no one's going to be able to replicate this video, yeah?
Okay.
It's going to have more impact than any video that comes after it.
I'm still here. I'm just gonna turn off my thing. I gotta go.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
Imagine I, as a YouTuber, came and said, look, I am claiming to be a prophet from God. I'm going to create a video. And the video I can't hear you, by the way, you're on mute.
He's muted himself.
Yeah, fine. So so I'm saying that if I come out and say, I'm going to make a video, and the next video that I'm going to make is a video that nobody after me is going to be able to replicate in style, in rhetoric, in impact, in any way, shape, or form. Okay. I'll make that claim. Yeah. No YouTuber, no TikToker, no Instagrammer, nobody can match the video that I'm going to make. Now, imagine tomorrow then I come here to this fantastic studio and I sat down and I made a video, and the video was 40 hours long. It's one continuous video. Yeah. And that video now, all of a sudden, is viewed by, let's for the sake of argument, say 5-10 billion people. Yeah. And not only is it viewed by 5-10 billion people, but a portion of those individuals memorize the whole video from beginning to end. They memorize the whole thing. Okay, you're listening to this, yeah?
Yeah.
They memorize the whole video, yeah? From 40-hour video, they memorize it from memory, yeah? Another portion, they start empires with that video. And in all continents, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in every single continent. Another portion of the people, they are now using that video to inform their marital life, their sexual life. They go to the toilet, they refer to the video. They do anything, they refer to the video. Anything they do, even before they sleep, they do something that's in that video. Before, when they wake up, they do something in that video. Yeah? Have I succeeded in producing a video that no YouTuber before me and no YouTuber after me can make?
100%, of course.
Probably, yeah? Because if KSI and Logan Paul and all of those ones, they try to do that, I don't think anyone could do that. Mr. Beast, all of them. No one can make a video that's that long. I promise you. Now, there's no YouTuber and no social media personality in the face of the planet that can make a video that's 40 hours long. In the case of the whole Quran, is 40 hours to recite. That's why I said 40 hours, yeah?
Yeah.
40 hours long, okay, that people are going to live by, people are going to memorize, people are going to teach their children, people are going to, and think about this, it's going to happen for the next 1,500 years now. It's going to be relevant, trending for 1,500 years. The video is going to be trending for 1,500 years.
Right, but I mean, so I hear this is definitely, like I said, sorry, I don't know your friend's name, but
His name is Sabur.
Sabur. So, like I said with Sabur, 100%, I agree that this is proof that if you're going to be looking for the truth, this is a great place to start and look at. But however, I don't think that this, like we said, right, the existence that you made a great video doesn't, pertain to the video's contents are true. Right?
It's not about that though. It's the fact that the challenge has been made. The challenge has been connected to my claim for prophethood. Do you get it? So look, the challenge started with the whole Quran. And then it went on to even just one chapter, which is only 3 verses. So why is it the case that, number one, those people who warring against the Prophet, yeah, instead of just stopping it by making a chapter that's 3 lines long, they continued to war with him for 13 years. Why is it the case that empires continued and Muslims continued fighting, continue doing this, continue expanding? Well, this could have been ended a long time ago, yeah, if this, from a linguistic, rhetorical perspective, was a matchable thing. Linguistically, it was unmatched even at the time where people were great at poetry of the Prophet. Sociologically, it's unmatched because there's nothing else that came after the Quran that's memorized by that many people, that's lived by that many people, that produced that many empires, that people still reference. Let me give you an example. One verse in the Quran says, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. This is one small verse of the Quran. And most people have memorized it, ironically enough. That's probably watching this today. It's in chapter 94 of the Quran. وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ means that we have raised your mention. That's what the verse says. We have made you mentioned a lot. So Allah is telling the Prophet, you're going to be mentioned a lot. Think about the following. I'm in the UK. Do you know what the most popular name in this country is? Muhammad. Do you know that every hour, every minute, every second, someone is saying the word Muhammad on their lips somewhere on the planet? Do you know that? Because someone is either calling a name, either they're saying Muhammad when they're praying, when they're on the last rak'ah, whether So what I'm saying is, if I make a claim that I'm going to raise your mentions, that's a quantifiable sociological thing. This is objectively. Even I went on a website called Pantheon. It shows you who's mentioned the most on the internet. And they put Prophet Muhammad today in all languages as number 1. Yeah. Really? Yes, it's you can see. Pantheon is showing you that. Now, there's other things as well, like for example, Michael Hart put him as the number 1 most influential person of all time. So there's lots of different examples of that. He's being mentioned, the Prophet Muhammad, by different people, his friends and his foes. Till this day, there are political parties in the West that are centered around, the Prophet Muhammad and Islam. Like now in England, there's a whole movement, that's anti-Muslim. If you're an anti-Muslim movement, you've made Islam so relevant.
Right, no,
you said Tommy Robinson. Do you know what? Tommy Robinson is a proof for the veracity of Islam. His existence is a proof of the veracity of Islam. Netanyahu's existence is a proof of the veracity of Islam. Why? Because the fact that he keeps every day, if you go on his Twitter, he's talking about Islam.
No, I understand, but
Muhammad, the Prophet, Muhammad, the Prophet, Muhammad. Akhi, what he's doing is showing that the Quran is speaking the truth when it says that we're going to raise your ranks and your mentions. Well, your mentions, the fact that the Quran says you'll be mentioned at the highest level, you'll be mentioned at the highest level. The Quran says that, and there is objectively nobody who has been mentioned after the revelation of the Quran like the Prophet. Whether positive or negative, whether friends or foe. You can say Jesus Christ. People don't pray 5 times a day in Christianity. In Islam, you have 5 adhans a day. In all Muslim countries and even non-Muslim
why does that matter, though? Why does it matter if it's
when people say the adhan, they say the word Muhammad. Do you get it? They use the word Muhammad.
I understand, but I mean, this kind of reminds me of I remember, I grew up very Jewish. Like all these rabbis would say, "What do you mean that Judaism must be real? Look at the fact that we're still alive. All the things that's happened." I don't view
it shows something. It shows something, brother. Of course, it shows something. Do you know Judaism? The reason why it survived is because it has great truth inside of it, brother. Of course, there's truth in that.
Right, no, but I agree.
Do you know, we believe that Judaism has great truth inside of it. We believe that these prophets, Moses, Aaron, we believe in the same prophets. There's great truth in the Old Testament. The reason why that book has survived, the Old Testament, even though it's corrupted, we believe, and has got some insertions and deletions, is because of the great truth that it has inside of it, man.
No, but I mean, the way that it would be used is, hey, this must be proof that God is approving of our people because we're still around. And I think that's a ridiculous claim to make.
There may be some approving. Yeah, there must be some level of approval somewhere.
Well, what I would say, yes,
there must be some level of approval somewhere.
I agree.
You've got Jewish people are like what are they? 20 million people, yet they are relevant. What does that show? It shows something about Judaism which is true. There's something in there that must be true. It does show that.
I would say I wouldn't say that it proves that. What I would say is that
I think great truth
it
is more likely
causes.
to survive.
Well, I think it causes reason to look at and to study, and you have to look at it and to find out the truth. But that alone definitely cannot prove that Judaism is
Yes,
a real
I'm not
religion.
that
or
alone.
that-
Of course, this is just one of many different arguments, my friend. I'm just telling you that I was just embellishing the argument of Sabur and saying to you,
Mm,
there's a challenge. The Quran provides two challenges, yeah,
okay.
to show if it's true or not. There's two challenges. One challenge, all right, is number one, try and find a contradiction in the Quran. Yeah, so and that's what you would call a falsification test. The second challenge is try and produce a chapter like it. Now, as I mentioned, what are the measures of that challenge? The second one. The
I
first
think,
one's easy. The
Well,
second one, as I mentioned, there's wait, hold on.
yeah, sorry.
We have to be honest, brother. There are things which are measurable. They're measurable, okay? Like a ruler, I see to see how tall something is. There are measurable things. If I'm saying to you, brother, the Quran is saying, produce a chapter like it. And the chapter, this chapter, whatever chapter it is in the Quran, there's no chapter in the Quran that is more relevant and is more, has been mentioned and memorized and been part of law and been part of empires more than any chapter in the Quran. There's nothing. A human being, whether it's white, black, Asian, non-Asian, whatever, there's no human being that's ever come out with something like it. It shows something. You said, okay, well, in Judaism, it's survived so many years. As I said, yes, because there's some great truth in that book. Yes, there's great truth in Judaism. That's why it survived. There's great truth in Christianity. That's why it has survived. Look at the New Testament. Just read it. There are some beautiful passages of that book. There's a reason why it survived for such a long time, why it's still relevant as well. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say to you, brother, is that's one argument. There's many different arguments.
Right, but like I mean, from what I'm hearing, again, the thing we said about how it's so prevalent, it causes reason to look at it. I agree with that part. However, the two challenges that it makes, I think once you're looking at it from the eyes of that it is the truth, these challenges are never ever. It's impossible that you would make them wrong because any contradiction can be explained away with I think hadith do that, right?
Not at all.
Well, no, but I mean, any seeming contradiction that seems, hey, but it says here over here, we can say, oh no, but they're not talking about that. It's coming to teach us this. I see rabbis doing this all the time, right? So again, I can only talk about my experience, but I've seen it, and I see Christians do it as well. Like, there's seeming contradictions. Once we come at it from the view of this is from God, we can create any explanation that we need to make it out of context.
The reason why a contradiction in particular is mentioned in the Quran is because proof by contradiction is one of the most foundational, logical, and mathematical types of establishing falsehood. The Quran is not trying to establish truth by saying find a contradiction in it. It's trying to establish the lack of falsehood in the Quran. So I'm not saying it's a sufficient condition. I'm saying it's a necessary one. So I'm not saying that just because a book does not contain contradictions that therefore the book is from God.
Well, I understand, but the point is
but that is there because if you have contradictions, then you know the book is not from God because as we mentioned, sorry, brother. So because God, we said, is the knowledgeable source that designed the universe. So if we expect the knowledgeable source that designed the universe to be knowledgeable enough not to have contradictions in his book, right? So that's a necessary thing for it. You want to say something?
Absolutely. And I was just going to say, my dear friend, we have quite a few people waiting in the studio.
Okay.
I think one of the things I really like about you is that while you were praying, when I gave him the general view about the sociological, cultural, economic, political impact of the Prophet, peace be upon him, he agreed at least this person is a potential candidate for a prophet. That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
That's a good starting point, right? So any last words you want to add before we move on?
I mean, I'd like to. I guess I'll summarize what I got from it and just tell me if I've gone anywhere wrong.
Sure.
I would agree with you that they're most likely the first cause. That most likely that first cause has reason behind it. What I'm still agnostic about is the conscious will, right? We were talking about conscious. Now, when it comes to Islam, I would say that for sure it's one of the big candidates you have to look at, right? Because of the things, all the reasons that we talked about. However, the reason why I'm not yet sold is because I haven't seen enough proof pointing in that direction. That's something that maybe I'll be able to find as I continue learning. My next question to you, final question, would be: what would you recommend for me to continue learning about? I guess for you
Excellent.
guys, Islam.
There's a book right there. There's a book right there, The Divine Reality. If you can pass that to me.
Hold on,
This is one of the best books. One of the best books for non-Muslims to learn about Islam, The Divine Reality by Sapiens Institute. And it actually goes over everything we went over today: arguments for God's existence, including consciousness, contingency, moral argument, design argument. Then it goes over why God is one, why there's revelation, why the Quran is the word of God, the nature of the Quran and why it cannot be man-made, prophecies of the Prophet. So everything together in one comprehensive book, and you can get this free from the Sapiens website. And then next time you come, you can actually read it and we can get some of your thoughts.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, man. You've been
Brilliant.
fantastic. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We have Stefianos. What's his name? Stefianos.
How you doing,
Welcome.
boys? How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing
Someone
good,
used
man.
to step
I
down,
just want to
step down,
say
yeah.
I've been pretty educated on Mr.
Good.
Hijab for quite a while. I
Well,
think
I'm
he's
gonna have a rest, Stefiano. You speak to my friend support.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back. I'm just gonna have a little rest.
good?
Yeah.
all good. I'll still be here. Wait, so what's your name, brother? I heard that you were his brother,
Sabur.
but Sabor, nice to meet you, bro. My name is Stefanos. I hear you call me Stefianos. Close.
Stefano. Were you
Yes, sir.
Greek?
Yes, sir. Good job.
Do you know that book is actually written by a Greek Muslim convert?
Really?
Yeah. So this is Hamza Sort says he's actually the CEO of Sapiens, and we're actually we promote this book not just because it's written by someone who's our boss and our friend. It's actually because it's genuinely a really good book.
Okay.
And it took many years to actually write this. So you can get this free. And anybody from any background, whether they're Christian, Muslim, or Jew, atheist, agnostic, they can learn a lot from this. It's like a textbook to really get to the crux of what Islam is about.
Nice. Well, okay. So first, I feel like you're gonna have to tell your brother this when he comes. First things first, I will be honest. I used to be Muslim, and I'm not anymore. So I know that breaks your heart a little bit. I'm sorry. I still love you. I still love all my Muslims, but I'm having a hard time kind of having a how do I put this? I'm having a hard time because okay, let me just start from the beginning. So I was born a Catholic, right? I got baptized as a kid. And then the more I grew up, I started looking at the world. I started realizing everything. I genuinely came to the conclusion that at some point, Islam is the truth and only the truth, right? I was about 18, 19 when that happened. And then I went to my mosque. I took my shahada, all that, right? And a couple years later go by, and I was living with my roommate at the time. He's from Iran. He's a Muslim too. And I think I forget which one, Shia and Sunni, but I think Iran are what? They're Shia, right?
Mostly Shia, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he was just telling me that, hey, like, fasting, all that stuff. He explained to me the pillars, all that, so I had a better understanding. But man, a lot of these people that I realized are Muslim, right, were very bad examples of Muslims, right? So then slowly I started detaching myself from the religion and just started going off the Quran. My friend, he's a big YouTuber. He bought me the Quran for English speakers. It's like the Quran for dummies, pretty much, right? To where it's in English and it's a little bit easier to understand. So I guess I really want to ask you and your brother, right? I believe that denominations are kind of formed against humanity for the greater good to divide, right? Because let's say you and let's say I still pray like 4, 5, 6 times a day.
So,
okay,
Stephanos, if you don't mind, it's good for us to stick to one topic at a time because you've touched upon a few topics.
Yeah, okay.
And it's nice for us to go in a chronological order.
Okay.
So firstly, my friend, why did you accept Islam initially before you left it?
Okay. Honestly speaking, I got into this very deep rabbit hole about Jesus Christ could possibly be Satan. And then I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, if that's even realistic, like, how is it how would I like? Okay, this sounds really weird, but I swear I'm so serious, right? Like I'm a streamer. My community could tell you that everything I'm telling you is not for like a clip. Like I'm genuine. Like this is seriously what I believe. Like over the time, I just started thinking that Islam was more like there's no contradictions. It's very straight line, right? Like you could walk it, you could read everything. If I want to search something up about science, I want to search something up about why I shouldn't eat pork. It says it all in Islam, in the Quran, which I liked. So that's why I turned over to Islam.
Okay, so this thing that you said that Jesus could be Satan, like I've
Right.
never heard this before.
Okay.
Like
Well,
how? I mean, even I'm sure you're aware
mhm.
or appreciate that in Islam, we don't believe anything negative like that about any prophet.
Right. You guys
So
believe
it's,
the
it's
Prophet
like
Isa?
where did you get to that idea that that could be a remote possibility?
Okay, so this is crazy, okay? But seriously, I've been waiting a couple like an hour, 50 minutes to ask these questions. And if they sound crazy,
Okay.
then I'm okay having a crazy answer come my way, right? Honestly, man, there's really no easy way to say it. So I'm just gonna say the truth. And if you want to read in between the lines, because I'm not gonna speak it directly because we are on YouTube, I just feel like the people at the top of the world that want you and I and everybody in your guys' amazing stream, I think they genuinely want us all to be lost and have no sense of direction. So then they do these wars like,
Very. I mean,
know?
that's not controversial. I think that everyone understands that.
right. So what I'm saying is I've when I denounced Islam, I didn't denounce Islam, but when I pretty much stopped following the religion, I just kind of came into more of like a what's the word? It's like a honestly just like an orthodoxual religious man, right? Like be good, love everybody, don't play with the jinn, don't play like every time I see myself doing
Okay,
something
so
wrong, try to come
look,
back, you know?
the thing is, we're getting away from, I think, what is the most important topic,
Okay.
which is why you believe what you believe. So, what was the reason that led you initially to become Muslim?
Oh, well, I answered that a little bit. It's just kind of like how everybody pretty much so okay in Christianity, I don't like that people worship the cross more than the creator, right?
Okay,
And-
there you go. Good. Tawheed.
Right,
Tawheed,
but-
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But on the same in the same sense with Islam, it's like there's a lot of question marks I have, right? And there's a lot of things that
Okay,
I
but this is
one
the
at a
thing.
time. Sorry. I have ADHD. I'm sorry.
Stephanos, right?
Sir.
Let's stick to one thing at a time. Do you believe that the Islamic concept of God, that there is one God who is perfect and the only one worthy of worship, nothing like the creation, right? Completely transcendent, outside of space, time, matter, energy, everything. Does that make more sense to you than, say, the Trinity and other concepts of God?
There are some the same way there were some alarming stuff with Christianity. I would say the same towards Islam.
Okay, so let's just start off with the Islamic belief in God.
Okay.
Do you have a fundamental problem with that, or do you think that's rational?
Okay, you're not gonna like my answer, but I'm telling you the truth, so maybe you could make me see a different light. I don't
Sure.
believe Allah is Elohim or Yahweh.
Forget Elohim, Yahweh, forget that. I'm just
Okay.
saying, even the word Allah in Arabic, we can ignore linguistics for now. What does it mean? The idea that there is a creator of the universe who is the only one worthy of worship and nothing like creation, not physical in any way. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. That is the crux of Islam. So the
Right.
crux, core belief of Islam about God, you don't disagree with. So let's now go down the order. Do you believe that God sends prophets to the to earth?
So when you ask me that, you're talking about Moses, you're talking about Isa.
No. Before we get into the particular prophets, the idea that God sends prophets, the idea that God sends his representatives, does that sound rational to you that God would do that?
Well, you don't want me to get into specific prophets, so I would. Sorry.
Before we get into particular prophets, my point is, since you believe there is a God,
Right.
and that's a rational thing.
Right.
Now, if I made a factory and I did not send to the factory a manager, supervisor, or anybody else, I just left the factory workers on their own, someone would say I'm negligent, right? You need to send some form of instruction, some form of
Right.
guidance. This planet with billions of people, it needs a form of guidance. So
Correct.
guidance has come through prophets coming and teaching people about God and about morality and about how they're supposed to, establish a social order, these types of things. Does the idea of prophethood make sense to you?
I could see, again, without, you told me not to get into the specific prophets, but yes, I could see it's like sending a kid to go right, but with no teacher. Right.
Okay, good. Now let's get to the next point, right? There's many different prophets. So let me just ask you, do you believe that the Prophet Muhammad is a messenger of God?
That's a good question. I'm very unsure. Truthfully, I'm unsure, because part of me
Okay.
could see how it's true, how he was truly sent by God, and then part of me could also see how Satan likes to deceive people. That could be another denomination to divide humans.
So
Islam.
let's break it down one step at a time.
Okay, I like
okay.
this.
The concept of God, which is that there is one God who is all powerful and nothing like the creation, the only one worthy of worship. This concept of God was taught to humanity by the Prophet Muhammad.
You're
And
kind
he
of
taught this to people all around him who were pagans, right?
right.
Was he right in that he was teaching this concept of God?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Are you asking because you kind
So
of
my
lagged?
question is, you
froze for like
previously
5
said
seconds.
Stephanos, that the idea of God in Islam makes sense to you, that there's one God, the only one worthy of worship, nothing like his creation. You agreed with that, right?
Right. I think that's how every religion is.
No,
Yes.
not every religion is not like that. Sikhism's not like that. Hinduism's not like that. Shintoism, Taoism, Judaism, Christianity, all of these types of religions, their concept of God is fundamentally at odds with the Islamic concept of God, in that there is only one God worthy of worship who is completely transcendent. And if
Right.
you look at Christianity, they've made Jesus God. If you look at Judaism, they have anthropomorphized God. God is someone who lost to the prophet Israel and rested on the seventh day. And it comes to Sikhism, God has no attributes and God has attributes. There's contradictions. Hinduism, the cow is God, the snake is God. Shintoism, Taoism, same thing. You can go back to ancient religions like Tengriism, the worship of the blue sky. The
Yeah.
fact is, all of these religions fundamentally are different to the Islamic concept of God. This is why I asked you this very particular question, because the most important thing for you to realize whether Islam is true or not is if you agree with Islam's theology.
Okay. Well, are you asking me if I believe in Islam's theology?
Well, you already previously said that made sense to you.
Right. I believe
Not
that
the other
there's-
things, but the theology did.
Well, again, because I feel like you're kind of overlooking when I say this. Like, I believe that there is one God, right? I don't believe I don't believe that the Trinity is a little confusing. I don't believe in a lot of the stuff that isn't just God, right? So that's where I come in and I say that's where I think Satan has came in and created false denominations amongst humanity. So then why? So then people like us, right, could get in a call like this, debate, create problems, even though we're not creating problems at all. I just see it much clearer that way, right? For example.
Okay, but
Okay.
where I would disagree with you
Okay.
is I would agree with you that Satan creates denominations and sectarianism and all this type of stuff.
Right.
However, right now, that's not what's happening. We're only talking about whether the belief in God makes sense or not in the way that I explained it from the Islamic perspective. So I think what's basically going on is I understand your concerns about, how humanity can be confused and misled by Satan, but that you can't just apply that writ large to all religion and say, okay, all of this stuff is going on. If something is true, it's true regardless of the fact that Satan's going to try and create these denominations or problems or whatever. So all you need to do, Stefanos, is go through each point about the Islamic belief system and see whether it makes sense to you, it doesn't make sense to you, which is why I went over belief in God, and that made sense to you. Belief in the concept of prophets, and that made sense to you. Now let's get down to particular prophets. Now, about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you said you're not sure he's a prophet, right? You said that.
Right.
You're not sure.
Right. Like, you know how
So-
Moses, we have something that is accounted over time for many different cultures and many
Yeah.
different religions. They acknowledge Moses. My problem is with Islam is that it came after Christ. So that would mean two things. In my mind, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, right? Maybe Allah, in this case, God, would have seen humanity worshiping a cross, worshiping Jesus Christ, instead of doing what Jesus Christ wanted his people to do, right? Which is worship the Father. So that I could see that, right? God's like, you know what? I don't get how these freaking humans are still messing up. Jesus came down. So you know what? Let me send a illiterate prophet that could explain that this is not it. You know, like Isa was a great prophet, peace be upon him, but that is not God, right? So then I could see that. I could see that angle, which is beneficiary for Muslim, for like the regular Muslim woman or man. But here's really where I'm getting at. Like, this is I have three main questions. My first main question is the start of time, right? I'm talking about the 13 tribes. I'm talking about Jerusalem was intact. I'm talking back then, right? Somewheres over time, Rome became much bigger than what it is, right? And Rome kind of became the Vatican at the same time. So my question to you is sir, I forget your name. What was it again?
Sabur.
Sabur. Okay. Mr. Sabur, if you genuinely, and you can be brutally honest, if you call me stupid, then it is.
No,
what
no,
it
of
is.
course not. You're
Do
very
you-
intelligent man.
Do you genuinely believe that over the whole course of history, from the Vatican days to hiding stuff in the Vatican from the public, the fall of Rome, Odysseus freaking on his boat, everything, do you genuinely believe that you and I and everybody listening to this amazing podcast, you think we have genuine answers and like anything but lies? Because like, how would you
No.
prove to me, and how can I prove to them, or anybody prove to anybody that we know the truth and we're not just part of some very unfair prison kind of system? Because if me and you are spending our whole lives worshiping the wrong God, then what are we doing within ourselves? Spiritually, what are we doing? We're going to just
Okay.
stay here.
So look, there's an element of hyper skepticism which starts to become just incoherent. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. So we have to break down each thing into maybe categories.
Okay.
So let's first agree it makes sense that there is a God. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I agree.
It also makes sense that God, he would guide people who are sincere. So if I'm looking for guidance, I'm asking for help, God would tell me what's right and wrong. Same with you.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
One of the things that we're taught in Islam is that God is compassionate and caring.
Right.
And God does not turn away anyone that asks for help. So we shouldn't be despondent. We shouldn't be despairing and thinking, oh, the world is being run by Zionists and Freemasons and the New Rome and the Vatican and all this type of stuff, and we'll never be able to get to the bottom of it. No, if you want to ask for guidance, what's true, Allah, God will show you what's true and what's false. So we have to just chronologically go over every single thing at one point at a time.
Right.
So this is why what we need to do is we need to focus on, okay, do we believe in this man as a prophet? Why do we believe he's a prophet? If he is a prophet, how do we best follow him? I think what you're getting into is, and I've met a few people like that, not a lot, but it seems to be like you start off looking at the entire world through the paradigm of conspiracy theories.
I wish. I'm telling you, man, I used to be a good Catholic. I'd go to freaking church on Wednesdays, you know.
I'm saying the way you're talking now.
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
like honestly, man, like I'm not gonna get too into this because this is your platform and this is your guys' channel, and I would never want to jeopardize that. But when I was signed to an agency, because like I told you, I'm a streamer, I was signed to a very big agency that a lot of big streamers are signed to, and there was a lot of statue worship, there was a lot of stuff like that. So it's not that I'm looking from this telescope and I'm like, okay, I feel this way. Now I don't go off feelings, right? I truly believe the devil is the one that runs this world. He's stuck here. That's it. And me and you and everybody listening, we have.
You know what?
What's up?
I would say you've done a hasty generalization there. There's definitely satanic stuff in the gaming industry, in the streaming industry,
Everything.
in the multimedia industry, in generally you'll see it.
I-
Music
I-
industry as well.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I believe that it's this world, right? And we, the chosen ones, are to see if we are the truly chosen to where we could go to heaven, to paradise, or if we just continue here. That's what I think. I think that there's
Yeah.
people.
Look, I think you're making too many hasty generalizations here.
Okay.
This world is not run by Satan. There's definitely satanic elements, right?
Okay.
There's always a battle between good and evil. And all we can do is go by the best knowledge that we have and ask for God's guidance. And God will show us what's right and what's wrong. So anyway, my friend Stefanos, is great speaking to you. There's quite a few people waiting in the studio.
Oh, but you didn't even answer my question.
What was your question?
I'm saying, like, you're kind of looking at me like I'm crazy, but you're not really, like, you're making me sound like I'm crazy, right? But I know deep down you know what I'm saying is true. So I'm asking you, brother.
No, I think
truthfully.
I think I missed your question. There was your question.
I'm saying from going back to the good old days, right? Back then to now, how do you know and how do I know that everything we have, from the Quran to the Bible to the Ethiopian Bible to there's this, hold on, actually, because if you're trying to get me out of here, then let me just ask you, do you believe in the hold on, I have it here because I wrote down questions. Do you believe what do you think of the Shams al-Marif book?
What is that?
So you don't know what that is?
No.
So pretty much it's an ancient book of Islam, right? The
What's it called?
Shams al-Marif, they call him the son of Gnosis, the son of knowledge. It's pretty much an old Islamic book from the 1200s, and it pretty much explains a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. So that's why I'm trying to.
If it's from the 1200s,
Okay.
then that's not really a classic Islamic book.
Well, it's considered to be an Islamic kind of occultism, like under divination of, I guess, jinn, right?
You're gonna have to tell me what this is because I have literally no idea. Never heard of this before.
Dang, man. So, brother, how would you help me? How would you help someone that's going off the deep end? I pray to God every day.
Well, you could be in the deep end in the kids' pool. You know,
maybe, or
it could be it's a storm in a teacup, brother. That you're worried about. Like, for example, this book. I've never heard of this. Have you heard of this book?
I swear. No, sir. Sir, I swear everything I'm telling you is literally. I actually got recommended to come on here by my Muslim friend.
No. I get it, but I'm saying that book that you said is a mainstream Islamic book. Never heard of it. Something to do with the cult and the jinn. And
I wouldn't say it's mainstream, right? Because it's to what Kabbalah is to Judaism, but for Islam.
Bro, I'll be honest with you. I've never heard of this book, and I've been talking to people online and researching Islam for decades now. I have no idea. So I'm just saying, someone's just playing with you, saying, okay, this is some mainstream Islamic belief.
No. It's not that it's mainstream. I just want to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Look, I'll be frank with you. I've never heard of it. And frankly, I think it's probably just some irrelevant thing written by some guy.
Okay, so let me ask you, because you said that I was in a teacup, right? Like I'm in the deep end in a teacup. So clearly, you looking out, you're like, this guy's, he's a troubled brother, right? He's troubled.
No.
It's okay, man. It's okay. I can take it. I swear.
I'm not. You're getting me wrong. Yeah, I'm genuinely just a blunt guy. I'm just.
No, I feel like you think I'm trying to troll or something, and I'm genuinely like, dude, man, I honestly think that
I would need some coffee, bro. Please.
No, please, man. Send some my way too, man. Please. No, but I'm genuine, man.
This is my second coffee in like an hour.
From content creation.
Bro, I just got off a flight. I literally from the airport. I just came here, landed, and you're asking me about occult and jinn and this and that. Get to your next question now.
Okay. Do you believe that the Antichrist is? This is a really good question. Do you believe that the Antichrist is already born, or do you believe that we're getting into that era?
Can I say?
What's up?
Can I drop the word Antichrist and use Dajjal?
Yeah, that's okay with me. Dajjal.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the Antichrist is Dajjal. right?
Right.
Anyway, as in the Antichrist that's referred to the Bible, because I don't really use the Bible as a point of reference.
Okay.
So anything I use is just going to be the
The
Quran.
Quran.
And obviously, Dajjal is that figure that's Antichrist. You get my point?
Okay.
All I'm saying is that I don't use the Bible. I don't use the Old Testament or New Testament.
All right. I'm gonna ask my last question, and then you could sub me out. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. So,
Okay.
do you
What's your
believe?
question about that?
Do you believe that you and I like? Okay. Well, actually, I kind of did want to ask you why.
Go on,
why
ask
do you,
me, bro.
Why do you think Muhammad is a true prophet? Because when you asked me that and I gave you my response, I felt some separation from us.
Okay, no worries. Very simple. The very first thing to keep in mind is no concept of God makes sense to a human being except that there is one God, the only one worthy of worship, and nothing like the creation. These three things, you will not find any justification for a theology other than this. This is the only thing that makes sense. You don't have to be Muslim or have heard of Islam or heard of the Prophet. You could have been born in the Amazon rainforest and you could have realized there has to be one God.
Right.
Only that God we should have our love, our hope, our trust, our awe, our complete reverence for. And then that God is the only one worthy of worship and nothing like the creation. Okay. The mere fact that the Prophet came and he taught us this concept of God, by a process of elimination, it makes all the other people, all the other religious figures in the world that came, like the Prophet Zoroaster and the people that came with Tengrism and Shintoism, all of those things get eliminated by simply the theology of Islam. So the first thing is, why do I believe in the Prophet being a true prophet of God, peace be upon him? Is because of the theology that he came with. His theology is something which makes sense to a human being, even if they've never heard of him. That's the first point. The second point is, here you have a person who comes in the desert 1400 years ago, and he comes with a political, social, economic culture which transforms the world, which changes the demographics and changes the culture and gets people away from the worship of other than God towards the worship of God. And this system is successful for 14 centuries. For me, that's a big sign, a sociological miracle that this man is a true prophet of God. Then when you add on to that his teachings, his moral teachings, his leadership as a man, the type of person that he was, his kindness, his forbearance, and all these moral virtues. And then on top of that, when you look at the prophecies that he made, whether it's to do the prophecies to do with the future and the rise of interest and the markets coming together and the Mongols and all these types of things, it's a case that when you put it together holistically, you would have to be insane to reject the idea that this man is not a prophet of God.
So how do you right? How would you, sir?
Thank you, bro.
How would you differentiate Islam not being a denomination and stuff like Christianity being a denomination or Judaism being a denomination?
One thing.
Okay.
The way I would do it is this. Firstly, look at what does Islam teach about God. It teaches something which Judaism and Christianity does not. Both of those religions, they have elements which show that Satan has gone in there and messed things up.
Okay.
With Christianity, they're worshiping Jesus instead of worshiping God. With Judaism, they are anthropomorphizing God. They're making God into a human, someone who loses to a prophet and rests on the seventh day.
But don't you think
That's how I
that's
would
the
know that.
plan? But don't you think that's the corruption that I was asking you earlier about? Because Jesus wasn't walking around saying, I want you guys to kiss my feet. I want you guys to worship me. Right? The same way Prophet Muhammad wasn't telling people, I want you to worship me.
I think we agree. We agree with the fact that those are not the teachings of Jesus and Christianity has been corrupted.
So that's what I'm saying. That's why I think everything is a denomination. That's why I think everything it's like a puppet. And we know who's controlling the puppet.
The thing is, let's take your point to its logical conclusion.
Okay.
You're a denomination. You're a single man denomination.
if I'm not just worshiping God, then no, right?
What's
No,
the
no.
point?
Well, I'm saying that's false because I'm not
Why
doing
are you Stephanos Nikas?
Nikos.
You are a denomination.
But that's not true
Why?
because all I do is follow God. There's no
Yeah,
no
but that's what everyone
rules.
says.
But
That's what everyone says.
But there's rules. Like in Islam, I have to take my shahada. I have to announce. I have to acknowledge Muhammad.
Okay. Do you have the rule that you have to speak the truth?
What do you mean? I don't
That
understand your question. Like everything that comes out of my mouth has to be true.
No, as in you're just going to be a truthful person.
Well, yeah, those are I believe in
Oh,
honesty.
there you go. Is that a rule for you?
No, it's just a policy.
Okay,
It's
but
like, for example,
your denomination with policies.
no, but sir, that's not how denominations work, though. Denomination is
So what you're trying to do, Stephanos, is you're trying to say everyone else is a denomination. I'm a free thinker, or I'm a person with something outside of all of this. When you fall into the same thing, look, all I want you to do is this. I want you to just focus on, are the core tenets of Islam true? That's it. I think there's
pillars.
other things that you're bringing in there which aren't helpful, like this idea that everything's a denomination. That's not true either.
Okay, how? Like, sir, I'm asking you because you're the religion guru. I'm trying to figure out why my head looks like spaghetti meatballs stirred up. I'm trying to understand so I could be closer.
What is that? Chihuahua? What's that Chihuahua I saw?
Mocha, we just got disrespected.
Bring that dog, bro. I'm getting bored. Bring the dog.
What do you mean you're getting bored? How, man? You're like dancing around me. Sir, you're trying to rush me off.
Come on, man. I like dogs.
I love dogs too, but sir, you're trying to rush me off, sir. I just had to listen to a dude talk about 2 + 2 = 4 for an hour.
Stephanos, I'm not trying to rush you off. There's literally a lot of people waiting in the background. I can actually see them on my screen, and I'm just trying to give them time. That's it. I'm not trying to rush you off.
Okay, well, so do you think I'm lost?
Yeah, I think you are.
Okay, so how can I get back on track without you being biased?
By looking at the tenets of Islam one at a time, and the book that I recommended to you by Hamza Sotzis, start reading that. Come back next week and we'll talk then. There's quite a few people waiting, so we'll catch up then. Yeah.
You guys do this every day or every Tuesday?
Every Tuesday.
Okay, I'll see you next Tuesday.
All right.
It's Stephanos, by the way, not Stefiano, sir. Okay.
I'll call you Mr. S.
Oh, okay.
All right, Hubert Zhang. How are you doing, Hubert?
Hello. Hi. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Where you calling in from?
I'm calling in from the US.
Nice. Are you Muslim?
No, but inshallah.
Inshallah. That's how you begin off. I love the name Hubert because that's such a classic English name. Then you have a Chinese surname, Shang.
Yeah, that's right. I am of Chinese descent.
So are you mainland China, Taiwan?
Yeah,
Hong Kong?
mainland.
Okay. Speak Mandarin?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. What got you interested in Islam?
Well, obviously it's one of the main religions of the world. Second largest religion population-wise. So it's definitely something worth looking into. It makes claims to a universal truth, similar to its primary competitor, I might say, Christianity. So that makes it very interesting to consider. So just very, very interested in that aspect. Before I ask any questions, can I just recite something quickly?
Of course.
قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
That is amazing. How did you learn that?
I am interested in the linguistic aspect of the Quran. It's
That's amazing.
But that's kind of one of the main areas that I do have questions about, specifically like the qira'at,
You have the man right here. You have the champ. Come on, champ. You gotta come on, Hubert. You know, Hubert. This man was in slumber. He was lying down on the sofa. He's contemplating about why his life has no direction, and now he's seen you reciting the Quran. This young man from mainland China, and he's gotten the energy, and he's entering into the ring, and he wants to answer your questions and give you time. This is inspiring, Zishan. This is inspiring. Look, this is a man who hasn't accepted Islam yet, but he's learning the Quran. Let's have the mic. We're just going to fix the camera so you can see hijab, inshallah, yeah?
Okay.
And we're going to... There we go. So go on, ask your question. He can hear you.
Yeah, so I understand that there are like 10 canonical qira'at. Originally, there were 7. I'm just wondering, like, how did it go from the multiple qira'at that were floating around at the time? Like, how did, I believe his name was Abu Bakr al-Mujahid.
Sorry, say that again.
Like, how did the qira'at get filtered down to the 7? Like, how do we know that process preserved like what was actually recited by the Prophet?
Well, I mean, what really happened is this, okay? What really happened is that there was no such thing as the qira'at at the time of the Holy Prophet. There was only something called the ahruf. Okay, now the ahruf were the categories of change in some of the wordings relating to the Quran in some selected verses. Yes. Now, there's difference of opinion among the scholars as to what those categories exactly are. But what happened is that a qari is somebody who essentially heard from their sheikh a category of change, and they recited that category of change, and they chose that. So let me explain what I mean by that with a simple example. So, for example, Hafs an Asim is the most acceptable and widespread qira'ah in the world today. Hafs is the student of Asim. He is the qari, and Hafs is the rawi. That's someone who's under the qari is called a rawi, and in fact was 2 of them that are well known for Asim. There is Hafs and somebody called Shu'bah as well. And what Hafs did, or what Asim did, is that he took it from his teacher, say Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami in his case, and al-Sulami took it from his teacher, which in this case was Ibn Mas'ud, who took it from his teacher, which in this case was the Prophet Muhammad, obviously, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So why are there differences in Hafs and Asim qira'ah versus, for example, if one were to consult Warsh and Nafa, so that if you go to Morocco, they're going to say Malik Yawmiddin, which means the king of the day of judgment. And if you go to Egypt, you'll hear them say Malik Yawmiddin, which is the owner of the day of judgment. It is simply because the student of, in this case, Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, he was taught that particular rendition which was endorsed by the Prophet. And he was told to teach that. And he told his student that, and his student recited that. Now, could he have been aware that there was more than one rendition of this particular chapter, of this particular verse? Yes. But he only preserved one. His job was to preserve one rendition, not 2. So the 7 canonical, or like you mentioned, Ibn al-Jazari completes it into 10 in An-Nashr, one of the scholars of Islam. Canonical, what you call mutawatir, if you like, mutawatir, or mass transmitted qira'ahs, are not necessarily different in all aspects from one another. So as an example, Surah Al-Fatiha has 2 major words for the word Malik or Malik, or king or owner. 4 of the 10 use the word Malik or owner, and 6 of the 10 use the word Malik. So what's happened is you have one harf, which is a difference in, let's say, the wording here of some sort, and that harf is taken, okay, by different teachers, and some of them choose, and there is a choice here that they do choose one rather than the other rendition of approved qira'ahs of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are about 700 words out of 70,000. The Quran has about 70,000 words, or about 77,000 actually. So there's about 500 words of that which have more than one rendition. So it's a minuscule amount of words which have more than one rendition. And the Qurra choose one rather than the other because they know that both of them are authoritative and acceptable.
Okay.
That's
So
all.
yeah. So well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate the breakdown of like authenticating these qira'at. But like, is there more to like? Are there like other besides the 7 that were historically
Yes.
documented, and how do we know like did those not meet the mutawatir criteria?
Exactly. That's right. There was way more. In fact, there's 4 shawaz, and you have lots of people who had their own qira'ah, etc. They were not preserved. It's really as simple as that. That they were not preserved. Now, the question is, what is required for the Quranic preservation? Now, there are 2 views, because the question of Quranic preservation, there are 2 views, all right? There's a minimalist view and a maximalist view, all right? So we believe as Muslims that there are 2 groups of scholars, what you call people that are closer to Ahl Hadith or the earlier generation. They had a minimalist view of the matter. So they said, so long as one harf is preserved, the whole Quran is preserved. And this was clearly the view of At-Tabari, who mentions that in Muqaddimat At-Tabari with his tafsir. He mentions, so he says that if all of the ahruf were destroyed and only one of them remained, then that would entail, or that would still mean that the Quran is preserved. And the maximalist view, which I see as untenable, in my personal opinion, is that in order for the Quran to be preserved, all of the ahruf have to be preserved. And that leads to lots of issues. This was actually the view of Ibn Jazari and Al-Razi and some of the Mutakallimun. But I see that as an untenable view, actually. And so the minimalist view is that only one harf. So let's put it this way, even one, if you have one qira'ah, for the sake of argument, let's assume for the sake of argument that it's not just what do you call it, ahruf. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say qira'ahs. If somebody recites Hafs and Asim Quran from Fatiha until Nas, okay, and so Surah Nas, in just Hafs and Asim, the question to ask the maximalist is, has he recited the whole Quran? The maximalist may respond, no, that he hasn't, because in order for the Quran to be recited in its entirety, actually, it has to be recited in all ahruf, which is, At-Tabari would say, a laughable proposition. And so I agree with At-Tabari's position. And since the Ummah cannot do ijma' on a tenet of Islam, on something which, ijma' means consensus, they cannot have consensus, on something which is disagreed upon, okay, so the disagreement actually lies on the maximalist side. So there's a rational argument to be made that actually all you need is one qira'ah, one harf, whatever. From Surah Al-Fatiha until Surah Al-Nas, you have recited the entire Quran. And so the Quran is preserved with the preservation of one. And if someone says, well, there were some that were not preserved, I'll say no problem. There may have been some ahruf which are not. This is conceivable to me. So it's it's not a problem for the likes of At-Tabari, and it's not a problem for the likes of the early scholars of Islam who actually gave a strong argument for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see, where you're going with that, and how even if all the ahruf besides one were to disappear, it would still mean the Quran's preservation is intact. I appreciate that, like, traditional perspective, but respectfully, there are within. I'm sure you're familiar that, like, in Western academia, a lot of academics will push back on this and assert that differences in qira'at are due partly to scribal errors. And I'm not saying that I'm of this opinion. I'm just asserting that Western academics have this view. And one thing that stood out to me was that how there were 4 major regions like Mecca, Medina, Basra, wa Kufa. The argument within Western academia is that each codex that Uthman sent to each region had a slight difference. And these differences came in the form of, like, spelling, or sometimes like a wa would be missing, things like that. And after each region received the codex, the qira'at of that region would sort of develop around that codex.
Well, I think what you're doing is you're confusing different Western scholarly opinions and presenting them as one. And I'll tell you why I think you're doing that, okay? So, for example, Shadi Hikmat has many works. He's Yale, I think, University. And his thing is that just like the mu'allaqat, okay, or like the poetry of the ancient Arabs was recited with different variations, so too now the Quran was recited like that. And he gives some interesting, from my recollection, examples. He believes that these words were not, used or in circulation. Like the word talh in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, chapter 56, he says it was meant to be tala, for example. That would have been the proper usage. I'm just giving one example, right? And so he goes into that sort of detail. However, the spelling issue is actually one that's used to show continuity. So someone like Van Putten, in fact, shows that there are spellings of a word, and the word, okay, is like, as an example, the word salah. Okay, the word salah in Arabic is spelled in the Quran as salawat. Okay, salawat, and the word zakat is spelled in the Quran as zakawat, actually. Yeah. And he uses the fact that these words are spelt in an unintuitive way, yet are pronounced in the same way. So if I read now, وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ, and they started, or they established prayer and they gave zakat, every qira'ah is going to read it like that. Every single one of them, right? Now, the fact is, the question is, why is it that the spelling is unintuitive, yet the pronunciation is essentially the same? And he says, Van Putten, who is not sympathetic, in my understanding, to Islam, that it's because it shows that there are codexes which are essentially common and that were dated back to the time of Uthman ibn Affan. So he uses your argument or your point actually as a point to show continuity and preservation, not as a point to show, as was suggested, the opposite of that. But the other point about scribal errors is not as relevant to an Islamic framework as it would be to a Christian one, due to the fact that the primary mode of recitation memorization was oral and it wasn't even written. So the scribal errors wouldn't be as important to a desert community who prided themselves on memorizing entire texts. Whether or not the scribal error was there, the pronunciation was the main thing. And the fact that, as I mentioned, in 77,000 words of the qira'at, there's only 500 differences, which constitutes less than 1% of that total ratio, shows that the pool of contestants. What happened there, brother?
He's playing some random video.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, so as I said, do you see what I'm saying here, my friend?
Yeah. So just before that, Hubert, you're asking really intricate and important questions about Islamic recitation. I just wanted to take you just a few steps back. You're clearly someone interested in Islam and you're going deep into the linguistic issues here. Do you believe Islam to be true?
Well, I don't know is my opinion. I take a sort of skeptical, probably very academic approach to looking at religions.
Sure.
I think they, in my opinion, is they kind of develop around their environment as a way for people to understand what's going on around them, as a way for people to stabilize society. Pretty typical historical academic viewpoint.
So let me push back a little bit on that. So say you take the religion of Islam. I'm sure you're aware that when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, started his mission, it wasn't that his religion was a product of his environment. His religion was the exact opposite of his environment. His religion was the exact thing that would have put his life in danger and would have put his finances in danger and put his reputation in danger. And it was a religion which looked quite alien to the Arabs around him. For example, for them, tribal affiliation was more important than anything else. But here, you being a pious person is what made you go up and down in terms of your social ranking, as opposed to your lineage. So you also have many different things, like, Arabs had this love of alcohol, they had this love of committing fornication and all these other types of things, and he came with a bunch of moral teachings which completely went against that. So I wouldn't really agree with you that religions are a byproduct of their environment in the context of speaking about Islam. Maybe it's true for other religions, but I think Islam is quite distinct in its origins.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do think, though, that respectfully, and I consider like mostly secular academic research, just to let you know, when looking into like the historical backdrop of Islam, it does seem that like the Arabian Peninsula was already sort of moving towards monotheism. There was certainly elements of polytheism that persisted, but like there's work from, I think his name is Ahmad al-Jalad, like his archaeological findings show that people would invoke Allah, but also have some lesser deities like Uzza, for example, under him, or they would draw crosses while also invoking pagan deities. So it's clearly at like a crossroads of multiple religions.
So I disagree with your premise that Arabia was already headed towards monotheism. I think the way that you've described it, and you've correctly described it in terms of the Arabs believing in Allah and also believing in lesser deities, this is a well-known historical fact. But it was that mere fact which actually kept polytheism going. The fact that they were saying, yes, we believe in Allah, but we also believe in these idols. And there was nothing before the birth of the Prophet that would have given any historian, any sociologist, any anthropologist the faintest idea that within 3 decades, this entire region would be transformed from a polytheistic region to a strongly monotheistic one. In fact, what you would find is that the resistance to his teaching in his early years, where his own life was in danger, is evidence that actually Arabia was not ready for his message. And in fact, it took a long time and a lot of bloodshed as well that ensued when this message was being challenged. And not to say that Islam was spread by the sword, but to say that the amount of resistance that it found is not the sort of resistance that you would have in a society that's maybe ready for these types of social changes. I mean, one of the examples that we can give here is, if you look at, I mean, your own country of China, you had the century of humiliation, where you had the Opium Wars, and you had all of these colonial powers coming in, like the French and the Russians and the British, who were dominating China. That was one of the causes for Confucianism to die, because of Confucianism's pacifist role. It wouldn't allow people to be able to challenge the sorts of powers that existed during the day, and is one of the reasons actually at the turn of the 20th century that you had this huge rise in socialism, and then you had obviously the nationalists fighting the communists, and you had all this stuff going on. It happened precisely because Confucianism wasn't allowing people to thrive in that particular way. It was actually losing its grip in a big way. Well, with polytheism in the 7th century Arabia, it's the exact opposite. Polytheism was the bedrock, was the social fabric that held together everything economically, politically, socially, culturally. In fact, their trade was based upon polytheism as well. So I would say, look, you're a very smart guy, and obviously you're looking at many different religions and stuff. But I would say with Islam, you need to look at it from that angle, because I think you're missing a few things when it comes to how Islam started.
Okay, yeah, I can see, your point about polytheism being deeply entrenched. I would say respectfully that that's a position worth looking into, and also that from what I read of secular academics that delve deeply into this topic, they sort of push back on this. But it's just something I'll have to look more into. I would also.
Can I just sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Can I just add something here? Usually, the way that secular Western academics posit themselves is that they are somehow the arbiters of truth, as if people refer to them as if they're some sort of neutral way of looking at the world, or they're a particular vantage point which allows us to objectively adjudicate between religions. And I would challenge that. I would actually say a lot of these Western academics are ideologically driven, and they have a superiority complex when it comes to other faiths and other religions and other traditions. And a lot of it is actually European centric and Western centric. And you can't get away from that when you're actually in the academic world and you're reading their books and their texts and their paradigms and their ways of actually looking at other religions and other faiths. So I think that's something that you need to be a bit more careful of, in terms of, because I've seen you a few times refer to Western secular academia as if it's something unbiased and a benchmark from which you can look at other worldviews.
Also, like when you have been mentioning them, you haven't mentioned which ones you're talking about, and that's you said like, okay, well, it's, secular academic sources, but like,
yeah,
I don't think you've mentioned one of them.
Okay,
or maybe you have
well,
mentioned one or two.
I mentioned earlier, as far as like archaeological findings.
Yeah, remember him, yeah.
Ahmad Al-Jalad. I am familiar with Marine van Putten, who you mentioned. When it comes to the Quranic codices potentially having scribal errors, that is from Haytham Sidki. He works closely with Marine van Putten. Maybe you can look into him and perhaps come up with refutations.
I mean, as I said, he is right, because a lot of these people, they come from a paradigm which is imposing, for example, a historical critical method onto the hadith sciences or whatever maybe. But then the question is, what gives preference to such a method in the first place? And that's a question they don't start from.
Yeah, well, the preference is that obviously the West has the global.
Exactly.
Is the de facto global superpower.
that.
So it's going to be how we.
Well, not for long,
most
brother.
people
Not
view
until
the
your
world.
people get people that next to take over that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard. Actually, I was just watching a clip of brother Daniel Hakikachu mentioning that the Muslim view of China should be not particularly positive or negative, just as like a counterweight to Western influence.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Whatever. I'm very ignorant of Chinese culture, if I'm being honest. Like I need to be more like Cuba for China, like the way you are with Islam, how you're reading stuff.
You know when you're referring to China, right? I can interpret that in two ways. I mean, I would say in many ways the nationalists are the true representatives of the Chinese people, and the true Chinese spirit is found in Taiwan, not in Beijing.
Oh,
that would be.
You're trying to antagonize the man. He's been very polite.
No, I wouldn't antagonize. I think he'll agree with me. Wouldn't you agree with me that the cultural?
You get him in trouble in his country or something?
No, I wouldn't. He's staying in the West.
No, he's going to go to bloody Shanghai and get hanged.
Wait.
No, I understand. That position. I wouldn't agree or disagree. To be honest, I think.
That's a smart move.
Tell us what you think is going to happen with China in the next couple of years. Look, do you know, I want to ask you this because I get the feeling, that the Chinese have just like the way you've been speaking, I've been paying attention to it. It's quite interesting, right? You're a very, very intelligent man, and you're very interested in knowledge to a point of it's impressive, yeah. You've recited the Quran, some of the secular academic studies. It is impressive, yeah. And it's indicative of a greater Chinese cultural behavior. And I feel like the way that the Chinese are doing it is the opposite to the way that the Americans are doing it. So the Americans are showcasing and marketing everything they do, right? They're marketing specialists. Chinese are just keeping it quiet. And they're just building, they're just doing their thing. One day, something mad is going to happen. Something mad is. Tell me what you think, all right, is going to happen in the future with China.
Well, it's hard to make accurate predictions. I do think that it'll probably be, as they say, like a multipolar world with no longer a de facto superpower.
Have you been to China recently?
I haven't in a long time. I'm Western born. Actually,
are you fluent in Mandarin and stuff?
Yeah, I can speak quite fluently.
Are you following the news? And what do you think is going to happen? Do you think America is going to be replaced as a superpower by China? Do you think this is happening?
I don't think it will be replaced. I think it will just be two competing and also cooperating powers. It's not like the Cold War situation where both sides were totally not trading, totally at odds and hostile. With China and the US, they're heavily dependent on each other. I just don't think it could really get that hostile.
That's not the best paradigm to look at it from, because Soviet Russia and Soviet China were dependent on each other for trade, but they went to war, and they're both communist states. So just being economically tied to each other doesn't mean that you don't have these great power games. In fact, if you look at the South China Sea, you've got a whole bunch of military bases of America in the South China Sea. You see from Philippines and all the way to Japan, Korea, the Korean Peninsula. You've got a noose on that end, and then you basically have China landlocked unless it goes through, you know, the Gwadar port and these other the Iranian port and all the rest. And I believe this is just, I'm not saying because I'm pro China, I'm pro America, I'm just talking about it from a purely cultural point of view. I think the American go-getter attitude gives them an edge. Even before they became an economic superpower, they were still going around trying to dominate people, trying to conquer people, trying to win over territory, you know, pick fights bigger than their potency, right? I think China just doesn't have that. It has more of an insular way of looking at the world, and it's maybe more they may be more interested in just controlling their own society and controlling their own country. I mean, one of the things I was listening to recently was Sarah Payne. She's one of these like John Mearsheimer. She's one of these international relations scholars, and she says the main function of the People's Liberation Army is basically just to make sure that the Communist Party stays in power. So if you look at the size of China's economy and the fact that they haven't invaded in a big way other countries, they haven't dominated in the Middle East, they haven't dominated in Africa, they, you know, I think that's what's going to make a difference. It's not just the economics, it's the attitude.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
But go on.
I understand that perspective. I would, and maybe we can like compare that with like the development of Islamic overall foreign policy historically. And when it comes to like this attitude you speak of like the West constantly seeking to expand and dominate, I think that's a product of its geography and oh, it looks like the screen.
Yeah,
we can hear you. It's just,
carry on speaking.
Overall, it's a product of their geography, their lack of resources, their small land areas. Like you look at Spain, England, it's a very tiny island, and they do have to like go outwards, sail across to get resources, and that's where I would say this very hostile, conquering attitude comes from. In a lot of ways, I like England.
So what do you do for a living, Hubert?
Just before that,
Hubert, find out what he does for a living.
Before he does that, right? Hubert made a really good point about geography. So one of the things that some international relations scholars are arguing is there's two main ways of looking at empire. Continental empires, which are usually countries which have borders with other countries, and maritime empires. Now, what you find is when you have a country like Britain, they didn't have neighbors, so they could just focus on their navy, and they could focus on trade, and they could focus on economic prosperity, and they don't have to have large land armies. And so then they were able to dominate much more. What do we have in the East that's equivalent to Britain?
I would say Japan. Yeah,
Japan,
island,
right? Again, geographically very similar. And they ended up following a similar model, and they ended up in a similar way having a disproportionate impact on their neighbors in terms of their domination, because they didn't have to have large armies and stuff. So one of the things that he said, which is really smart, is a lot of models and the culture of a particular country and its mindset when it comes to foreign policy is dictated by its geography.
Oh, interesting. So, Hubert, what do you do for a living, my friend?
Yeah, I work in IT. I worked in cybersecurity for most of my career. Right now, I'm in a startup and focusing on AI agents.
Wow. Well, it looks like AI might take over. Would you say that your job is at risk?
Let's ask him another question about AI. Can AI be conscious?
You know, I to be honest, could we go back to the previous discussion?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating area to discuss, but
it's hijab. He's distracting this entire conversation.
It's something I don't.
Interesting character. I wanted to know more about him. You know?
Yeah, you know, I can envision like a future where you have crazies advocating for AI rights, and that they deserve so and so rights and things like that. But
Yeah.
but when you mentioned like China focusing mostly on economic prosperity because it already kind of has resources and can do it via trade, versus the West, which was kind of forced to go out of its way to conquer. How would you like compare the Islamic version of this to those two, like the Arabian
This
Peninsula?
the early Islamic version when it
Yeah.
first expanded, or
Yeah, the early Islamic version. Maybe you can also talk about how
Yeah.
the Turkic way of thinking might have affected it.
So I think
depends on which like empire you're talking about.
Exactly. I was going to say, because it depends on, if you look at, for example, the Seljuks and the Ottomans, their entire model and their way of looking at the world and even their governance, large parts of it, you could say, were influenced by their own geography. So if you look at the way that the Chinese were treating the Turks in Central Asia prior to the Turks actually then dominating Eastern Europe, you can see similarities between their Janissary model, which is not an Islamic model, by the way, the Janissary model where you go and you basically take these Christian boys and you convert them to Islam, and then you have this standing army of people who are basically forcibly, sadly, converted to Christianity. So it depends on the actual empire. When it comes to the first caliphs of Islam, the ones who are known as the rightly guided caliphs, there was an expansionist model. However, it wasn't unfettered expansionism. This is what's important. Explicitly, we know from a narration of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that he said, do not fight the Ethiopians unless they fight you first. Do not fight the Turks unless they fight you first. So it wasn't a blanket sanctioning of war against all your neighbors. It was a case when in the realist model of the Middle East in the 7th and 8th century, you either dominated or you were dominated.
Yeah, because the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire
were expansionist.
They were expansionist. So it's either that you're going to be expanded into them or they were going to expand into you. So if you're going to build a great civilization, they didn't have this idea of peace treaties with any of it. The Roman Empire for thousands of years before that, and the Persian Empire, they didn't really care about any of that. If they could, they would, and that's what they did. So because China wasn't stuck in between those two empires the same way as the Islamic Empire was, the comparison is unjustified, because China is geographically far away, from that sort of location where both would be the cross section of both of those empires.
Yeah, but in a way, China actually had its own mini version of that, because the Hans ended up monopolizing all of the other the people around them. So then today you have a lot of Han, even today, a lot of Han nationalism and a lot of historic revisionism in terms of what's been happening in China over the last couple of centuries.
That's right.
They had because remember, there is no such thing as China, right? China is just a geographic name that we give to this region. The people there, the people of Manchuria, the Han people, the Uyghur people, and there's all these different ethnic groups. Same with Russia, we just say Russians. But if you look at the history of Russia, and you look at the Khaganates that they had, the Kazan that they had, and all these different groups and people, every single civilization always begins off with this type of realist model. You cannot survive in the world. It's only today that we have the UN and we have all these treaties and these types of things. You can't judge the world from our paradigm.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a fascinating conversation with this Chinaman. I think that you've been very, very insightful, and we'd like to have you on again to recite some more Quran. This time, it will be good to recite it and believe it at the same time. It will be even better.
But before Hubert goes, Hubert, I have to ask you: do you believe in the Islamic concept? Firstly, do you believe in God?
Before you do that, I'm going to just pray. Actually.
There you go. So, do you believe in God?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Is there a particular religion or tradition that you believe in?
No, not particularly.
Okay, brilliant. Let me ask you a question, right? The basic concept that there is one God, and that God is the only one that you should worship. You shouldn't worship anyone besides that God. So your love, hope, fear, trust, all ultimately should be for that God alone. and that God is nothing like his creation. God is not physical, not in space, not in time, not in matter. This generic transcendent God, is that a concept of God that makes sense to you?
Yeah, I would say that is a view that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And does that make more sense than, say, a God which is anthropomorphized, which is physical, like a God that rests, or a God that becomes a human, or a God that's, limited? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. It sounds reasonable, more reasonable than
Okay,
a limited
good.
deity.
So Islam is a religion that believes in that very concept of God that I just described. And you don't have to be a Muslim, Hubert, to understand that this concept of God is what makes sense. This is the usual way that I speak to people when I introduce Islam. I say that the concept of God in Islam is so pure and rational that you could arrive at that concept of God if you were to logically think about it without ever having to hear about Islam. If you were born on an island and you thought about God, you would come to the conclusion that there's one God, nothing like his creation, and the only one I should fully focus on. A Christian comes to you with the Trinity, a Jew comes to you and says Israel defeated God and God wrestles, and then a Sikh comes to you and Guru Nanak can forgive your sins and God is within his creation. Tengri follower comes to you and says the blue sky is God. Islam's the only religion that will make sense to you if you use that paradigm about what can I arrive at God about God using my reason. And that's one of the reasons why I think all the other religions should be not treated as contenders to whether they're true or not. And Islam should be the primary contender because its concept of God is so pure.
Yeah. I believe it's like fitra, right? Like the natural
fitra. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sabur and Mohammed Hijab. Allah yarzuqukum khairan wa sahha. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. And just two things before I go. First,
sure. And by the way, please leave your email address. I'd love to be in contact with you.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
leave your email address in the private chat, and then I'll fire you an email after this.
Okay. Yeah, we'd love to have another discussion sometime, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So first, please tell Brother Hijab that Chinaman is somewhat of a slur. It's a bit.
Did he say
outdated.
that?
Yeah.
Did he say? Did he actually say Chinaman?
I was rather offended. So please tell Brother
Do you know
Hijab.
what? I'm sorry. I have to share a platform with this uncultured man who he doesn't realize you can't call someone a Chinaman.
Yeah,
You call you a Chinaman.
This is the kind of Arab supremacy. He was just making videos. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. But the second thing,
I have to apologize on his behalf, but I'm sure he didn't mean it. I think he's just tired.
Yeah, maybe he has an old-fashioned vocabulary. Second, can I just recite one more verse,
yes,
and then I'll go.
Please.
I had just memorized it. يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون صدق الله العظيم.
Allahu Akbar. You have beautiful recitation. I have to get your email. Wait. Hang on. Here's the guy. Wait, come back here. Let him explain himself. Hubert, do you know what he just said after listening to your recitation? He goes, "This Chinaman's better than you."
Oh, okay.
No, we have to educate him. Can you educate him on
This,
gonna-
this
we're-
man,
we're-
this man.
we're gonna
Mashallah,
wait.
mashallah.
Let's fix this camera. There you go.
Yeah,
you
but
go.
brother Hijab, I'm sure you're familiar with the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam
Assalam.
when he said that a black man has no superiority over the Arab and vice versa.
Of course.
And so I would advise you
Isn't Allah
to not
said,
use
right, you speak the
this term when referring to Chinese people.
Yeah, I didn't know honestly. Do you know? Do you know when I started
He
to
didn't know. He didn't know.
use Chinaman? Was,
Stop
no,
saying
no,
it.
listen, I'll tell you when I started using it because I was what do you call it? Watching boxing, yeah. And there's a guy called Zhang.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. The
Is your name
heavyweight guy.
Zhang as well? Your name is Zhang as well. this
He fought Khabib.
I
That
don't
guy.
know. Not Khabib boxing, Nahi, boxing.
Oh, boxing.
And the guy, the commentator, kept saying, "Oh, the Chinaman has knocked out Deontay Wilder." You know, he knocked out Deontay Wilder. Actually, his name is Zhang, and so I thought I like that. Chinaman is it's like, you know, there's a few other derivatives like that. You know, something man, something. So to be honest, I don't interact with that many Chinese people. So it's good that you told me.
Yeah, it's. I was, just kidding around, but I think maybe it's like a UK thing that's a little more acceptable over there. But
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Honestly,
it's
Yeah.
actually true because when I was in Canada, I was using some language about Native Americans. I don't know what I used. I used some term, and they actually said, "Well, that's an offensive term. You're not allowed to use that
Well,
term."
no, it's
So
good
so
that
some
you told
so
us.
this is good. This is good. I mean, this is how Hijab's going to learn, or else he's going to go around.
It's true. 'Cause
He's going to go to Leicester Square. He's going to go to Chinatown and start saying Chinaman, and then they're going to start beating you up.
Absolutely. I mean, especially if it's someone like Zhang, that Big Bang Zhang. His name, they call him Big Bang. What a huge man that guy is. And he knocked out Deontay Wilder. Anyway,
But Hubert, I'm going to get your email, and we're going to have to bring you back, and we want to have another conversation with you about why Islam is true, inshallah.
inshallah. Allah
So
يرزقكم
can you see the
خيراً
private
وصحة.
chat? Yeah, you can see it
Yeah,
over there.
yeah. Yeah, I'll leave it and
do
Yeah.
a bit for the charity as well, the orphans. Can we get Zhang to help us with the orphans? We're raising money.
Yes. So Zhang, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're actually raising for orphans to be able to do a historic pilgrimage to the House of Islam in Makkah, and it's for people who can't afford it. And so, if there's any words you want to give to encourage the people to support this charitable cause, it'd be very appreciated.
yeah, that's a very noble cause, a very wonderful thing. Anyone who can help provide for orphans to make Hajj, that would be a wonderful thing, and that's one of the core principles of Islam, actually, that I find very interesting, is this heavy emphasis on helping orphans. I don't really see that in any other religions. So inshallah,
Brilliant.
please
Inshallah.
help these orphans. Well, yeah, thank you both. I will
It was a
leave
pleasure
my-
speaking to you.
Honestly, I
Hubert.
learned so much from you.
Yeah,
So,
and you taught
Yeah,
him so
vice-
much as well
likewise,
about
likewise.
how to
Uh,
behave.
I want to learn more about Chinese culture because I'm actually really ignorant. Because I haven't had that many. I've actually had no Chinese friends. As bad as that sounds, I've met Chinese people.
I wonder why.
Because in London, there's not that many of them that I grew up with. Honestly, it's just one of those communities. I didn't grow up with Chinese people, bro. So I want to have more Chinese friends.
Inshallah, I
Jordan,
will
not
be
say
your first
wanna
صديق
learn.
من الصين. أول صديق من الصين إن شاء الله.
Inshallah.
So you're the first one. You got to teach me about, like, I know a lot about Chinese food, but that's it. Chinese culture, not really. Confucianism, not really. Like, so you're going to teach me more and more, and then I
Inshallah.
can tell you more about Islam as well. But it seems like you're going to teach me about that too.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
So that's
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know
So,
what I
yeah,
mean?
it was a pleasure. I'll leave my contact information, and yeah,
Thank
have
you,
a
brother.
great
Right.
rest of your night.
All
Assalamu.
the best. Salam. You know,
he's very intelligent guy.
you
He's
know,
very impressive.
you know this guy. Yeah, he's just one of those people that he knows Islam is true. Deep down, he knows Islam is
Why else
true.
would he be memorized the Quran? Man?
No, but when I asked him about, were you listening when I asked him about the concept of God? I said, one God, only one worthy worship, nothing like his creation. He agreed.
But
It's
you know,
not a
I
concept.
actually found the manuscript. Yeah, it was only written, and it's a Confucianist manuscript. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was phenomenal, bro. I was reading it. It sounded like, yeah. I'm not. I'm gonna sound. I don't want to sound. I don't want to sound controversial.
Go on.
I was reading the thing, this manuscript. My friend was showing it to me. He collects them, yeah. And wallah, it looked like a fiqh manual. It looked like whoever wrote this stuff, it was so filled with wisdom that it seemed like it was some prophet was sent to China some time ago, and it was wallah. Look, you know what I mean? Genuinely, it had so many good things.
This is a
So
coin
thank you, brother. Such a good
over
gift.
100 years old.
It's a Chinese one.
Yeah. This is a coin minted in Kashgar.
Where's that?
Kashgar is East Turkestan. And on one side is Chinese, and the other side is the Uyghur Arabic script.
Oh,
This is a coin I bought from Pakistan.
and that's another thing. The Uyghur people have really been suffering, and that needs to be. We have to raise awareness once again on that issue, inshallah, and we will do that. This is interesting coin, very nice, bro. They got beautiful stuff. Chinese culture is like, I feel ignorant of it, and I feel like it's a real gap in my knowledge. And
Yeah, that's why you go around calling people Chinamen.
well,
And they
call them
recite the
that, but
Quran
it's-
to you.
I don't know, like
That's a very nice.
I don't
Quran
know, man.
recitation.
I've never been reprimanded by that because I don't know about it, you know, and I don't have any Chinese friends and stuff like that. I've gone to many Chinese restaurants and had lots of noodles and those kind of things.
How's the service when you said thank you, Chinaman? Only boy noodles.
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't usually speak to them that much. Just
So
order
can
food
we
and
can we
stuff like
find
that.
some more people to talk to? Go down.
Yeah,
They're all Muslims. They're all
no,
Muslims.
there's a guy there that was
Go down.
called
down.
Alpa something. I said, look at that Alpa. Look,
Yeah, but we have no video.
his face is right there. You can see it.
Where? Alpa. That's
Yeah.
a Muslim.
How do you know that's a Muslim, bro?
That's a. I
He's come
remember.
off.
I remember he was.
Oh my God. We need to get this up to 10,000, guys, because otherwise it's humiliating for all of us. Otherwise, we're wasting our time here, man. Let's get this up to 10,000. We're trying to raise money for orphans, man. Okay, so who else we got? I need to go to the toilet.
Go.
Actually, I'll wait in a second. Yeah. Who else we got? Who else? Alpa's back. There he is. Assalamu alaikum, Alpa. You're Muslim.
No, but I could say alaikum assalam if that's valid.
It's valid. How are you, man?
Valid. I'm good.
Where
I'm
you
good. So, first question. You mentioned my name previously. I unfortunately got cut off. Can you remind me of what you said, please?
I just said that there's a guy called Alpa. Can we put him on there?
Oh, have you read my comments by any chance?
No. I just said there's a person called Alpa on there. So let's put
Okay.
him on.
Okay. So, first of all, English is my third language. So if I make mistakes here and there, please forgive me. Don't
good
call me.
English.
Where are you from, brother?
I'm from Austria.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Where Hitler? Hitler.
Bro, come on. Bro, come on. Come on.
Do I look like a
on,
Chinaman? Yes or no?
No, I'm only kidding. I don't know. I just thought.
No. I'm. I've been following
well,
both
I'm
of you
also
guys.
from.
Let's start
Arnold
again.
Schwarzenegger.
Let's start again. I had a great schnitzel in Austria. Yeah, carry on.
No,
Let's
no,
talk about how
I'm-
great the food is
I'm
instead of
only
talking
born.
about
I'm
men
only
with
born in
mustaches
Austria.
starting world wars.
No, look, guys, I have been following you for quite some time now. I know Muhammad has a healthy level of humor, and as do I. So Chinaman is fine.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah,
guys, so let's go to the questions, if that's okay. First of all, do you do this frequently? Do you go on live calls
We
frequently?
try to,
Every Tuesday,
Yeah,
yeah.
we try to
Every
every
Tu-
Tuesday.
Tuesday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay, so one question. No, I'm a direct man, or at least I try to be. I believe the contingency argument to be a very valid reason to believe in a first cause.
Okay.
I have no issue with calling that first cause God. That's completely fine. To the contrary, rather, I mean, guys say it could have been chance, da 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 da. Even if it were chance, then the universe would have another God, and that God would have been called chance. I mean, I don't understand why people don't reflect on that argument. But anyway, anyhow, my issue is I have issues understanding the concept of free will. I don't, or at least I have not found one good argument to believe in free will. And that, of course, you cannot believe in a religion. You cannot really believe in God testing his creation with a religion or with, let's say, morality if free will doesn't exist. So how will you guys prove or at least explain?
Well, I'll be totally honest with you, my friend. Yeah, I spent some time, a long time, researching this issue.
Yes, I know.
And I've come to a very simple conclusion on the matter. Okay. See, free will is the product of God's attribute of will. So God has an attribute, and that is we believe that it's will. He has the will, right?
Yes.
And I tried to articulate before to one of the previous guests the particularization argument, which was initially espoused by the likes of Al-Ghazali and others in the Incoherence of the Philosophers.
Yeah.
Which that because the universe is one way, not the other, that indicates an external sorting agent and therefore a will. So there is a rational way of reasoning that, or sometimes it's called the specification argument as well. So either it's a particularization argument, takhsis, or a specification argument. So the argument runs that because the universe is one way, not another, therefore there was something that chose A over B. And you can run this argument at the basic level, say that the fact that there is a universe rather than nothing is evidence that some choice was made. And so that is meant to establish for the necessary being a sort of will, right? Now, the question is now, how is it the case that you can have a God which is sovereign over all things and necessary, and that is responsible for the creation, if you like, and the existence and continued existence of all things, but at that same juncture or the same time you have entities within this so-called creation which have this thing which is free will in any way that would render them independent so that they can make actual, if you want, in a libertarian sense, decisions that would not be impeded by the all-encroaching sovereign ultimate power that is meant to make decisions on everyone's behalf, in a sense. Yeah. The answer is this. The answer is the fact that God has free will, full free will, and human beings have a sort of partial free will that is enough for them to be able to make decisions that would render them.
One question. I mean, sorry to interrupt, but in the Islamic or classical Orthodox Islamic teachings, you believe in some way of determinism, but also a way of free will, because you believe some things are predetermined, like qadar and qadar and so forth.
That's right. So we believe in a sort of compatibilism, it's called, right? So and that's the majority. By the way, that's the majority philosophical school of thought in the West as well. Yeah, like the majority. I would say the majority of philosophers go down that route.
Yeah, they go back and forth all the time, but I agree.
Yeah, sure. But even like if you go back, even what you said about moral argumentation, it's not just a religious specific argument. Like John Locke made an argument for free will, and he said that if you don't believe in free will, then you can't even punish people.
Nietzsche said something similar. We invented free will just for society to basically not collapse. But I agree. I get your point.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously he's different, but the point is with Locke, he's making an argument, philosophical argument, and then he's saying that if you don't believe in it, then it wouldn't make sense for you to punish people and put them in prison because it would apply even on a secular level. So these arguments are not Islam specific by any stretch of the imagination. This is something which is
strictly philosophy, actually.
Yeah. But the point is this: if God is all powerful, okay, and God has will, and God then allows human beings to have some sort of will, which would be enough for them to make decisions that would render them qualifiable for either heaven or hell. Okay. the mechanism by which and through which that takes place is actually unknowable to us. And that's not something aberrational to how we deal with any of the attributes. Because if you ask me, how do we know that God sees? Okay, I know that I know
Yeah,
that God sees.
that's not an issue to me, actually. That's really not an issue.
Yeah, so if someone asks, oh, how does God see? How I see in a certain way with my eyes, and then you know, and the image travels to my mind. But then if you ask me, how about God? How does he see? See, nobody on the face of the planet can tell you how God sees. No one can tell you how God hears. So al-kayfiyatu majhul. The Islamic position is the kayfiyah, or the howness, is unknown. So the question of how does the will of God interact with this lesser will of human beings, which is lesser in the sense that it doesn't have full independence in a sovereign way, but has enough to allow it to be able to make accountable decisions. That mechanism is absolutely unknowable to human beings, just the same way as how do I know God can see, how do I know God can hear, is absolutely unknowable. So any analogy I give you, anything I try to sell you here, is going to be deficient. It's going to be deficient goods. That's the first point. That in terms of actual evidence for free will, well, the best evidence for free will is the first person subjective experience. It's the intuitive evidence for free will, and that's why people believe in it. It's because right now, if you didn't believe in a sense of free will, then you wouldn't be having a conversation with me and thinking that I'm going to respond to you in a way that would be different to what you're saying, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. You wouldn't feel a sense of anger if you believed in zero free will. If you really, you wouldn't. Yeah,
that's the issue.
You would not feel a sense of anger if someone killed, you know, if you have a daughter or a son, you'd feel no sense of anger. So that's not the human experience. The human experience is that we, as human beings, feel anger towards injustice. We feel anger towards that.
But some don't. I understand what you mean. But my issue is, you know, those things, those emotions, we didn't choose to have them. We didn't choose to experience them. Same for the same reason as, for example, you know, both of you guys have been in the Dava, let's call it, business for over 10 years by now, I believe. And you guys are aware of the fact that some people just don't have the capability for deep rational thought. They just don't. That's just the case. My issue is nobody chose that. Nobody has chosen the favorite color.
That's what you're saying. But the fact is this: what do we mean by choose? What do you mean by that?
It was not a conscious decision.
How do you know that? What's the evidence for that?
What the evidence for? Let's be precise. Let's say, for example, I didn't choose the color blue as my favorite color. Let's say. Okay, but
look, that's a different situation here, right? I'm asking.
Okay, let's. I understand what you mean. Let's talk about
right now. You're
precise,
speaking, right?
Precise, yeah.
So you're saying you're using words.
Mm-hmm.
Are you choosing these words?
That's the issue. Am I choosing those words, or does my brain chemistry, my DNA, somehow tell me what to say?
Is the brain chemistry you or not?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't believe.
You really don't know?
No.
Is it possible that it can be you?
It is possible, but it also can be completely altered by an external force, let's say a surgery. It could be completely.
Of course, but if it's possible that it can be you, then it's plausible that you have free will, then, isn't it?
I understand the argument, but just because it is plausible.
Yeah. That's what we need, though. But because all we need to show is that it's plausible for there to be free will in an objective ontological sense, for there to be some.
But how is it objective? How is it objective? We are the agents. Objective, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe objective should mean basically non-agent relative, that the observable thing, let's say thing, or the result. Or the result of what is observed, not to be somehow manipulated by an agent, and therefore I believe everything we see, we hear, we think is subjective.
I know that you can make a problem for the hard problem.
Yes.
Say we're in the matrix world.
Yeah,
but we're not going down that route. I'm asking a simple question, which is that you conceded to the fact that it's plausible that your brain chemistry equals you, or at least an aspect.
I said
right?
I don't know, but
Yeah, but you said it's plausible though.
I mean, it's on the table. Yes,
It's on the table, so that there you have it. That's all we need. We don't need it to be more than on the table, because all we need to show is that there is a possibility that you have free will, not that there is objective free will.
yes.
So long as it's because if it's not contradictory, it's non-contradictory. If it's
it
possible,
can exist basically. Yeah.
then it can exist. Then it's not a problem, is it?
I mean, just because it is possible doesn't mean it's actually the case.
You're right about
Or at
that,
least-
but it also means it definitely means it's not definitely not the case. So it definitely means it's not impossible. So therefore, it's not an argument against religion.
Are you saying, for example, for something to be not able to exist, it has to somehow contradict with the three laws of logic in this sense?
I'm just saying that in order for you to say it's an undercutter for religion, and because you started off a conversation by saying that all religion depends on this, so I'm saying that for you to come to that conclusion, you need more than to say we don't have an objective proof of free will. You need to be able to say that we have objective proof against its existence, and that's what you don't have.
I have an issue. I understand your claim. Sorry for cutting you off, but when you say objective, I don't really understand what you mean. But as we have said before, everything I believe, at least we see, we hear, we think, we rationalize, must be subjective by definition.
Yeah, so I think maybe we're using the term in two different ways. But what I'm saying is this.
Okay.
What I'm saying is simple. What I'm saying is that if it's plausible, okay, if it's plausible that a human being's brain chemistry, you said the brain chemistry affects
neurochemistry or whatever. Yeah,
the neurochemistry or whatever.
DNA,
So I'm saying if that constitutes the individual, then that individual therefore can make a sort of decisions for themselves. So I'll give you the Islamic thing, right? So the Quran says the following. It says, وَالَّذِي خَلَقَكُم وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He's the one who created you and what you do. Okay?
So he created you and what you do.
Yeah, he created you.
Yeah.
And Allah created you.
And what you do.
Created what you do. But what he didn't say in the verse is that he does what you do. You see the difference here?
What's the tafsir of he created you and what you do?
Let me explain again. So Allah says, خَلَقَكُم وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He's the one who created you and he created basically what you do. He created you and what you do. Yeah? خَلَقَكُم وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He created you and what you do. Yeah? So he created you and also he created what you do. But he never says in the Quran, there's no verse, and that's not what we believe, that Allah does what we do. Do you get it? So the point is that there's a difference between the creator creating
and the creation, yes.
And that creation therefore has a first person experience with its own decision, and therefore is responsible for them in a sense. Allah's responsible for them in another sense. Ibn Taymiyyah says, one of the great scholars of Islam.
Yeah, I know.
He says in the 8th volume of Majmu'at al-Fatawa.
Majmu'at al-Fatawa.
Yeah. He actually mentions this for some reason in Majmu'at al-Fatawa. But he has a whole, in Majmu'at al-Fatawa, he has a whole discussion. Actually, he has a whole discussion on Qadr. He has a whole book written on it. I think it's
Destiny,
the 8th
basically.
Yeah. It's the 8th volume of Majmu'at al-Fatawa. The whole volume is dedicated to this. And so he's asking the question, how is it the case that the human being can still have, you know what I mean? Like he can still have the ability to make a decision whilst Allah created it. So he gives this analogy, and the analogy he gives is of a rock. He says, for example, if two people are carrying a rock, one person is carrying it from one side, another person is carrying it from another. So the human being from one aspect is semi-independent in the fact that they have a semi-autonomy to be able to make their own decisions enough that would render them, give them the ticket to either go to heaven or hell, but not the full capacity such that they would supervene or inhibit or curtail or undermine the creative and administrative capacity of the Almighty God. So there is a way in which this synthesis takes place, this compatibilism takes place. But as I mentioned, the exact mechanism, I mean, he mentions the analogy of the rock. I don't particularly like that analogy, but it's a human attempt to try and talk about something impossible to describe.
Yeah.
I can see many issues with his, frankly, analogy. Some big issues, if I'm honest. But nevertheless, it gives you somewhat of a heuristic. The same thing with Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. He wrote a book called Shifa al-Alil, which has been partially translated into English, but not fully translated. And he has a whole chapter or two, I think, or maybe three even, on the qadr. And he spends a lot of the time speaking about qadr, or the idea of the determinism and free will. And he gives the example of a slave and a free man. And he says the similitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us the ability to make a decision is a similitude of a master telling a slave to go to the market and buy this and that with this money that he gave him. And he's always got control over that slave. And at any time he can pull him back. But he's allowing him to make his own decisions. And then he's giving him the permission to make his own decisions. And then he'll retribute him afterwards. So he says that the similitude of Allah, who's all powerful and has all the creative capacity, etc., doing that is the same as the slave master doing the same with the slave. And finally, another person that, I don't know if this is interesting to you, but there's lots of examples like this. There's lots of
no, this is really interesting. I mean, as I've said before, as Jeff mentioned, I've started the conversation going into this. Yes, there are other questions as well, but please, this is really, really insightful.
Yeah, well, I mean, these are some like human attempts to try and do it. But as I mentioned, there's a beautiful hadith, actually. Maybe I should end with that. And that, the paper has this hadith, which is that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us the similitude of the revelation coming down on the people is the same as the similitude of water coming down from the sky. And then it hits part of the earth, and some parts of the earth produce beautiful shrubbery and greenery and all this kind of stuff. And other parts of the earth stay the same and they're dead. And other parts of the earth, are not affected either. So in other words, the revelation, the Quran, it strikes the hearts of individuals. Some hearts respond. And they respond just like the ground. Some ground responds to the rain in producing shrubbery and vegetation. And some ground does not respond. And that's, one of the Stoic philosophers says that when he's talking about, he's not Muslim, but he has a very interesting, powerful thing. He says that the human nature is what determines whether they're good or bad. And he gives the example.
I couldn't understand you acoustically. The human nature determines?
Whether, like, there's something within the human themselves, there's something there which determines. So, like, he gives the example, right? So you remember how you talked about extraneous variables? Like,
yes.
Yeah, you said, like, for example, we're forced to do certain things, like your favorite color, blue.
Yeah.
Someone else's favorite color is green and red or whatever, blue. And it might have been informed by some external stimuli, which basically pushed you in that direction.
But you still have to respond to that earlier specified stimuli in a certain way.
Exactly. So this is what I can't remember which Stoic said this, but maybe we can find it in my article, because I've written a whole article on this. And he said this, it's like this. For example, if you get like a cube rock, okay, you get a cube rock and you get a circular rock, like a ball, and you put them at the top of a hill, and you push one of them and you push the other one. One of them will roll down the hill and the other one will stay the same. The one that rolls down the hill is doing so because its nature is spherical, and therefore it actually responds to stimuli in a different way as the cube. So you can push the cube and you can push the ball. The ball is going to roll in a different way to the cube because the ball has something within its essence which is allowing it to do that. Now, the reason why I mentioned this is because it's the same thing as the hadith of the Prophet, which is that the water comes down, some people are responsive, and some people are non-responsive. And it shows you that you can have the same external stimuli on two separate subjects, and the nature of those subjects determines how there's going to be a response. So that's why the Quran comes down, and that's an external stimuli. It comes down on the believer and the disbeliever. Some of them will accept.
Yes, but the rock doesn't have a consciousness. It doesn't have a subjective awareness, which you pointed.
That's of course true. But what the analogy is, that the rock has one of them is spherical and the other one is cuboid, for example, right? And so the analogy is that the cuboid, no matter how much you push it from the top of the hill, it's not going to roll down like the way that.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, okay.
Some disbelievers, you give them 1,000 miracles, 1,000,000 miracles, you keep pushing, it's like a rock, it's not moving nowhere, brother. But some true believers, you touch them and they'll roll all over the place. And that's what you can have the same exact stimuli and the same exact external pressure, extraneous variable on the two subjects, but because one of them is by nature evil and the other one is by nature good, essentially one of them is successful and the other one is a failure.
That would have been my next question. I mean, for example, I can be wrong, of course. I have no moral quandary for admit being wrong. For example, I really like to believe in God, and I believe the question to ask if all of this is designed is probably one of the most intrinsic to our nature. It is just natural for a human being. Everything we see operates on cause and effect. So why should the universe not have a cause and effect? I mean, I believe that to be one of the simplest questions that a human can ask. So I really want to believe in it. Of course, yes.
So you're rolling down the hill.
Well, brother, just make dua to Allah.
My head is a little too spherical, maybe. But anyway, look.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, but just make dua to God. Ask God to guide you. And
yes, of course. But that's the issue. I mean, I did not choose to not be convinced by some arguments.
Do you know how I know you don't believe that?
No, but he's on a journey, though.
No, but let me tell you this, right? Like the Quran has a beautiful verse, and I want everybody to ponder over this, including yourself. And I mentioned a couple of times in Sapiens, but I'll mention it to you as well.
By the way, one question. I have written 3 emails to the Sapiens Institute, I believe, over a year ago. All 3 have been left unanswered.
Unbelievable. That's administrative.
No.
Okay, please send us your email again, and we'll sort this out. Okay, so that's
another organization.
Yeah. Anyway,
it probably went to you.
Yeah. So you're in charge of the emails, right? So
let the Chinaman be.
No, the Chinaman.
No, but please, please go on.
Yeah, look, this article is really, really good, by the way. Yeah, it's the one that was written during COVID, Wrestling with Free Will. And right near the end, there's a spiritual element, which I think you're going to enjoy. Yeah.
Is it on Sapiens Institute?
Yeah. And he's actually, you're talking about the COVID stuff. So, where's it gone? There's this little section. I just want to read it. Because look, these things are not abstract conversations. They have a real world impact. Yeah.
Yes.
So first in the article, there's a reference to the narration of Prophet ﷺ. Strange are the ways of the believers, for there is good in every affair of his, and that is not the case with anyone else except in the case of a believer. If he has an occasion to feel delight, he thanks God, and thus there is good for him. If he gets into trouble and shows resignation and endures it patiently, there is good for him. Believing in both free will and theological determinism allows me to feel a profound sense of protection and internal stability.
That's the compatibilism, yeah.
It's so beautiful. So I just read this article, because I think you're someone that's going to accept Islam, inshallah, and I think you're on a journey. And Islam's not something that switches on and off. It takes time sometimes with people. And with your email, we just emailed the other brother, Hubert. I just emailed him now. If you leave your email in the private chat, then I'll send you an email in the next 5 minutes.
On the studio chat. Hubert Zhang. Yeah, okay. Hold on. Do you guys still have time, or are you going to go to Chinatown?
Oh, we're not going to Chinatown after Hijab's shenanigans.
Why not? Why not?
He's gonna take his shirt
was
off.
That your choice of free will, or was it predestined somehow? No, look. There you go. Now look. I have another question regarding the Quran. I don't have the exact verse. I believe it was in Surah Al-Araf or Al-Ahzab, and I believe it was about God talking to to the mountains, to the earth, to, let's say, on inanimate objects. and it said that they rejected the covenant, the trust. Yes, and I believe the animals accepted it somehow, or was that in a hadith or something like that? Or was it mentioned specifically in the Quran?
Yeah, the humans did. Humans.
Yes, of course the humans did, but I believe the animals weren't mentioned in the trust covenant in the Quran. I believe. Is it true? They were not mentioned. Okay.
So I mean, the trust was offered to the
man,
the different,
the earth, yes.
Yeah, to different things, and they rejected
it. Yeah.
And man was foolish enough to accept to go for the trust. What was your question about that? I didn't get your.
Is that the reason why humans are tested by God?
No, the reason why humans are tested is because God is the best of creators, and because He's Ahsan al-Khaliqin, He creates the best of creations, and the best of creations is a creation that has the ability to choose for itself. Because with the AI that we have now, I can tell you, they're talking about AI, AGI, this and that, whatever. There's nothing that can be replicated or created in the world which has first-person subjective experience.
Yep.
And that's why when the Quran talks about the fly, it says that no one will be able to build something or construct something like a fly, even if they all come together. Why? Because this fly can feel, it has first-person subjective experiences. It can reproduce. There's so many things it can do. No matter how much technology increases, these are things it can never get. And so Allah, as one of the poets of the Arabs said, he says, وَمِنْ عَجَائِبِ الجَّبَّارِ أَنْ يَجْبُرِ الْعِبَادِ بِالِاخْتِيَارِ. That's one of the wondrous aspects of the compeller, that he compelled the slaves with free will.
Allahu Akbar.
And that kind of creation is, circling back, why did Allah create a human being? Because the human being with this ability to choose, his first-person subjective experience, and the ability, just like me and you are doing now, to question, is the greatest possible creation that you can imagine any creator creating. And that's the reason, because God manifests his attributes and his creative capacity. But since it's natural, just like a light emanates its rays outside, it's natural for the light to do so. It's also natural for God, with his attributes, to manifest those attributes in the most beautiful and practical potential way possible. And the way he's done it is by creating a human being fi ahsani taqweem, in the best of proportions, but also with this imbued ability to recognize God and to ask about him and critically inquire about him, which is something that no human being, even with the material that God has given them, will be able to replicate in the form of AI or anything else.
Absolutely. What a beautiful way to answer that question and end this session. I think we should wrap it up here. We've been going for
really?
2 hours.
So you guys said you are at least aiming to go live every Tuesday.
Yeah. We are live every Tuesday, so you can join us. And I'm going to take your email. I'm going to fire you away an email in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alpa.
No, thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Cheers. All right, that was a great live stream.
Fantastic.
That was a really good live stream.
Brilliant.
I mean, one of the things I learned is that the people joining us, the quality of the people, I've been away for a few weeks, they're getting better.
Much better.
You can see some Chinese. My brain's not working. Our brother from China reciting the Quran in such a beautiful manner. Then we had the Jewish young man, believing that it's possible that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is a messenger of God. All of these beautiful conversations are happening, and they're happening from around the world. People are joining us from different parts. Imagine all the people, hundreds of people. I'm seeing it fluctuate to 1,000.
I feel like we're getting more sincere people now as well.
100%.
In the first couple of weeks, it was just like hostile
missionaries.
Yeah,
and
now
they're no longer coming.
It's boring now. So now the people are coming for this is where the real conversation.
100%.
All right, guys. With that, we'll conclude. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Send me the thingy, please.